In his past life, this young man was an insect expert. Now, reborn, he has unwittingly become the most powerful poison master in the martial world. The giant, azure-spotted centipede, a beast that once struck terror into the hearts of the is merely his pet. The yellow wind queen, ruler of all bees, was also raised by his hand. Even his adorable larvae are obedient and fiercely protective of their master. Though they seem harmless, each creature is one of the rarest and most potent poisons in the world. Even demonic cultivators from the evil sects would meet their end if they dared challenge our main character. Our story begins with a young man named 𝐒𝐒𝐒, a famous streamer who made videos about insects and venomous creatures. One day, a fateful snakebite sent him reincarnating into the world of Murim. But no matter the world, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 couldn't give up his hobby of collecting poisonous creatures. On this particular day, a group of travelers asked 𝐒𝐒𝐒 for shelter for the night. As darkness was falling, from their attire, he immediately recognized them as members of the Sichuan Tang Clan. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 agreed, telling them they could rest anywhere they wished, but they were not to approach the main hall he was currently using. The head of the Tang Clan, 𝐒𝐒𝐒, cupped his fists in gratitude. Afterwards, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 excused himself, stating he had an important matter to attend to. It turns out, his important matter was that it was feeding time for his precious pets. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 went inside and opened the lid of a jar. Inside were several cricket-like insects. He hugged the jar, whispering that he was almost late and asking if they were hungry. He then reached over to open another jar, revealing a black earth tiger spider inside. This species of tarantula from the Hainan region of China can grow up to 20 centimeters in size. As an adult, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 used chopsticks to offer a cricket to 𝐒𝐒𝐒. Smelling the delicious meal, the spider immediately devoured it, as if it had been starved for days. This old man can't even handle a simple feeding on time, always running late. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 then moved on to a nearby cabinet. Inside a drawer was a chameleon, a native species characterized by the striped patterns on its body and tail. In his past life, buying a chameleon was incredibly difficult due to the lack of suppliers. Yet now, he could just step outside and find them crawling everywhere. Seeing the old man just standing there muttering, instead of feeding him, the chameleon grew impatient. "You've been my old man for too long." The angry chameleon snapped at 𝐒𝐒𝐒's finger, making him yelp in pain. Just then, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 suddenly appeared. He thanked 𝐒𝐒𝐒 for letting them take shelter from the rain, and asked if he'd like to join them for dinner. They had just hunted a deer in the forest. Here and there was meat. 𝐒𝐒𝐒's eyes began to sparkle as tears welled up. It turned out that since reincarnating here, he hadn't had a single proper meal, surviving only on snakes, centipedes, and lizards. At that thought, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 happily accepted. He could finally eat real meat again. The scene shifts to everyone gathered around a bonfire, roasting the meat. The fragrant aroma of grilled meat wafted through the air, causing 𝐒𝐒𝐒 to stare intently, his mouth watering. While waiting, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked if he lived alone on the mountain, and how old he was. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 replied that he was probably around 14 or 15 years old. Not wanting to reveal too much, he vaguely explained that a childhood injury had made him forget his past. He claimed to have lived alone on the mountains since he was a child, surviving by catching snakes, skinning them, and selling the hides. They chatted for a while. A short time later, the roasted meat was ready. 𝐒𝐒𝐒's father, 𝐒𝐿, handed him a steaming hot leg of venison. Looking at the smoking piece of meat, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 said, "Thank you, Senior," and happily took it. He took a huge, satisfying bite, the flavor melting in his mouth. The venison was tender and fragrant, perfectly seasoned, and absolutely divine. It was roasted at the perfect temperature, locking in the juices and keeping the meat from becoming dry. It had been so long since 𝐒𝐒𝐒 had eaten such delicious roasted meat, and he was overwhelmed with happiness. While they ate, 𝐒𝐒𝐿 revealed they were searching for a giant centipede with green spots, known as the Thanban Inkang, which was quite large. A fully grown one could easily treat a human as nothing more than a meal. 𝐒𝐒𝐿 explained that his daughter was bedridden with a serious illness. Only the internal core of the Inkang could save her life. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 silently marveled at the lengths a parent would go for their child. Although he felt sorry for the centipede, he had been treated to a meal, so he decided he would help them. With that thought, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 spoke up. "Well, I don't know what a Thanban Inkang is. I think I can guess where to find it." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 was more confident in his knowledge of poisons than anyone. Of the 8.7 million living organisms, about 20,000 species are known to be venomous. He had committed the knowledge of every single one of them to memory, including all their exceptions. With my expertise, the world of poisons is completely within my grasp. Wielding a book, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 focused his entire mind. The pages began to turn on their own, emitting a wondrous light. After a moment, he snapped the book shut with a cheerful smile. "Found it," he said. 𝐒𝐒𝐒's eyes lit up instantly. "So, if it's a giant centipede, I think I know exactly where to find it." 𝐒𝐒𝐒's was astonished and pressed him. "What? Are you certain?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 also interjected. "If that's true, where could it be?" He paused, deep in thought, then looked at them inquisitively. "Can you tell me which areas you've searched? And at what time of day? Can you tell me that?" "Though unsure why," 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 replied, "we've scoured the northern and eastern areas around here, mostly during daylight hours. In the north, we focused our search primarily along the riverbank." He rubbed his chin, muttering, "I see," he thought to himself, so there was a reason they couldn't find it after all. The two men were shocked when 𝐒𝐒𝐒 said, "Well, in that case, Of course, you couldn't have found it. Duong Quan blurted out. What? Of course, the old man asked urgently. Could you tell us why? Tu Long smirked confidently. With pleasure. Centipedes are myriapod. They are wide-ranging and cold-blooded creatures, so they require a specific shelter to maintain stable temperature and humidity. What's interesting is, unlike most insects with waxy cuticles, a centipede is weak, with breathing pores on its shell, so they actually avoid places with too much water. Although they need a humid environment, they dislike waterlogged areas. But without moisture, they cannot survive for long. This is a unique characteristic of the centipede. Sitting on the porch, Tu Long continued his lecture. Therefore, a Thamban Ngo Kong of that size would most likely not live in a dense forest or near the river. Duong Quan looked troubled. I can't believe it. So they don't actually prefer crevices and rotted wood. What? Tu Long replied. Some smaller centipede species might be found there, but you're looking for a massive one, correct? Tu Long continued his explanation seamlessly. For a creature that large, fallen trees and riverside rocks aren't suitable, as they offer no real place to hide. After hearing this, Duong Sun and Duong Quan exchanged a look and nodded slowly. Sitting beside the young man, he said with concern, if we find it where you suggest, you will be rewarded handsomely. Tu Long smiled confidently, pointing at the mountain before them. He confirmed the west, saying, you should try searching the western Rocky Mountain instead. Centipedes rest during the day under sun-warmed rocks and only emerge at night. As darkness fell, moonlight illuminated the treacherous cliffside. On the cliff face, the search party split up to begin their hunt. At the summit, Duong Sun stood watch, his brow furrowed in concentration. Just then, a man ran up to him. Clan leader, is it possible the young hero was wrong? Duong Sun was silent for a moment. Is that so? Leaping down, he ordered, we'll rest here for tonight. Fire the signal flare to regroup the search parties. Yes, clan leader, the soldier replied. A signal flare shot upwards, burning brightly against the night sky. As the men rested, they sighed in exhaustion. Gods, I'm dead tired. I hope that young hero's words prove true. They muttered among themselves. Where could this cursed centipede be? Still, that young hero seemed pretty sharp. He knew what he was talking about. Suddenly, a noise from Duong Sun's direction caught their attention. He was gritting his teeth, his voice trembling as he spoke. Duong 𝐒𝐒𝐒, she is considered the greatest prodigy in the history of the Temps clan. Have the heavens truly decided to forsake me? Just then, a voice called out, the Grandmaster has returned. Everyone turned to greet him in unison. Welcome back, sir. What's the situation? Duong Quan asked as he approached Duong Sun. Still, no sign of it today. Duong Sun replied, no, father. He then asked, did you find anything? Father, Duong Quan coughed lightly, and things are not looking good. Duong 𝐒𝐒𝐒 can only hold on for 3 more months at most. We don't even know if we can find it in the next 10 days. A heavy silence fell between the two men, both sharing the same sorrow. Duong Sun suggested, father, what if we try searching the south tomorrow? With no other leads, the old man sighed in agreement. Very well. Suddenly, Duong Quan's eyes widened. Nothing at all. Then, he slapped his forehead and laughed aloud. That's right, so that's it. Why didn't I realize it sooner? This is the place. Seeing a glimmer of hope, Duong Sun quickly asked, father, did you just discover something? However, Duong Quan's answer was not what he expected. No. In fact, just as you said, I found no traces at all, or any sense of a presence. Duong Sun asked in surprise. Right? The old man confirmed, because there is nothing, and that is precisely why I feel it is here. Duong Quan scanned his surroundings and asked, in the past 3 days, have you discovered anything on this rocky mountain? Duong Sun replied, no, we haven't found a single trace. He stroked his chin thoughtfully. No animal droppings or territorial markings. There really is nothing. As the words left his lips, his eyes widened in sudden realization. He understood at the same moment as Duong Sun. The oldest spoke with excitement. That's right. It's impossible that on a mountain this vast, there wouldn't be a single trace of any animal. He clenched his fist and whispered, this is its territory. Duong Quan replied with delight. Precisely. That's why all the surrounding beasts have fled. Could it be hiding in a place we'd never expect? Duong Quan nodded. We need to re-examine everything carefully. Every nook and cranny on this mountain could be its hiding place. Duong Sun looked worriedly into the distance. If we don't find it, 𝐒𝐒𝐒's condition will only get worse. Don't worry so much. We will absolutely find a way. As long as we don't give up, there's still hope. Duong Quan patted his son's shoulder to reassure him. Prepare meticulously for tomorrow's search. Yes, That's why all the other animals fled. Every last one of them is gone. Run, or become prey for that centipede. He clapped a hand on Duong Sun's shoulder reassuringly. The azure-banded centipede is definitely here. We can finally save 𝐒𝐒𝐒. A glimmer of hope appeared in his eyes as he spoke, but he couldn't even finish a sentence. The ground began to shake violently. Panic erupted as everyone shouted, what is this? Someone else screamed, what on earth is going on? In the chaos, one person was so terrified, they stumbled right into the bonfire without even realizing it. Then, a massive explosion erupted from the flames. Duong Quan and Duong Sun stood there, completely stunned. What was that? They yelled. A razor-sharp pincer suddenly burst forth, slamming hard into the dry earth. The terrified soldiers stammered, Over there. Dirt and rocks rained down on them. The old man's face went pale as he let out a piercing scream. It was then that the form of a colossal centipede, the 𝐒𝐒𝐒 centipede, slowly came into view. At that same moment, in the city, sounds of panic filled the air. It's absolute chaos. Tulong said He lay sprawled out, wondering, how big could that centipede be to make everyone so afraid? They just went to find it, not tear down the whole mountain, right? Tulong smirked. How massive could it be? Could it actually swallow me whole? He grew excited. I'm getting really curious. In the darkness of the mountain night, everyone gathered around the carcass of the slain centipede. Duong Quan opened a wooden box and announced, This is the inner core of the azure-banded centipede. A wave of emotion swept over the crowd, as the old man covered his mouth and coughed softly. We can finally save 𝐒𝐒𝐒. Duong's son, his body battered, stepped forward and said, Father, please take the warriors, who are uninjured, and have them head to 𝐒𝐧𝐤 first. Duong Quan was puzzled. What are you implying? Gazing into the distance, his son replied, a kindness must be repaid, and a debt of vengeance must be settled. Grudges are carved in blood, while gratitude is carved in stone. But don't we still have matters to attend to here? Duong San asked. The old man tapped his head as he remembered. I was so focused on 𝐒𝐒𝐒 that I nearly made a grave mistake. Duong Quan put the box containing the inner core away. That's right. We must treat the young hero as an honored guest. Whatever he desires, we must grant it. Yes, let the injured warriors stay in the village to recover. In the meantime, I will go to meet our young hero. Duong San added. He is probably anxious to hear from us as well. Tulong wore a gloomy expression as strange creatures crawled all over him, clinging to him relentlessly. What am I supposed to do now? In just one night, I've somehow become the father of azure-banded centipedes in a strange room, Tulong mumbled, thinking back to his plan. When I get home, I'll wipe the egg clean and place it by my pillow. In the morning, I'll wake up to see you. He looked at the hatchlings crawling on him and sighed. My precious babies have all hatched. Looking at their round bodies and rabbit-like ears, Tulong controlled his emotions and said, I expected this, but I never thought they'd hatch so quickly. He glanced at a baby sleeping on his cheek when it suddenly relieved itself, causing him to yelp. Hey, you guys, give me some space. Tulong thought to himself. The problem is, I think these little creatures have imprinted on me as their mother. One of them began to chew on his sleeve. They're clinging to me and won't give me a moment's peace, he said. The night before, in a ravine, he had found the azure-banded centipede's secret lair. The closer he got, the more menacing it felt. He accidentally kicked something and cried out, What in the world is this? What kind of beetle is the size of a grown man's fist? The torch fell from Tulong's hand as the massive beetle beside him collapsed to the ground, panting heavily. Tulong wiped his sweat and muttered, That was close. He looked into his pouch. In any case, 3 eggs are still safe. Tulong rubbed his head, murmuring, It's a good thing the rain stopped. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to save any of them. Suddenly, a realization struck him. He shot to his feet. This is no time to linger. I have to get back and clean these eggs right away. He tied the pouch securely to his belt and said, All right. With an excited look on his face, Tulong announced, My little centipedes, just you wait. And now that the eggs had hatched, he could only sigh. I never got to see the living azure-banded centipede, but I guess I'm lucky I saved these eggs. The adorable babies kept clinging to Tulong, making things a bit awkward for him. Hey, now Tulong said, Aren't you planning on ever leaving my side? The mischievous hatchlings crawled down his back as he mumbled, I know you don't need to eat until your second molting, so I don't have to worry about food. But having you stick to me like this is really difficult. Tulong suddenly had an idea. If I get into the water, perhaps you'll leave me alone on your own. A wicked grin spread across his face, frightening the little Looks like it's time for a bath. The next morning, Duong's son, his body covered in bandages, walked with determined steps to a specific location. Arriving in front of a room, he called out loudly, Young hero, are you in there? After waiting a moment, he called out again, Young hero. Hearing no sound from within, he pushed the door open and said, Young hero, I am coming in. As he scanned his surroundings, Duong Song noticed that there was nobody there. He murmured, medicinal herbs, various jars, and even a medicine chest. Looking at the herbs, he wondered, could it be that this young hero is also skilled in the healing arts? He sighed, scolding himself for his rudeness in entering an empty room so freely. With that thought, Duong Sun, he decided to leave, stating, I will return later. Suddenly, a strange sound caught his attention, making him turn back curiously and mutter, What is that noise? Behind him were several large jars. He moved closer, cautiously, lifted a lid, and gasped in pure astonishment. What in the world is this? His eyes fell upon a spider clutching something white in its jaws. He murmured, a web spinner. Glancing at the medicine cabinet, he whispered in disbelief. Duong's son quickly opened a drawer, revealing an orange-striped creature. He questioned, Is this a rock lizard? In utter disbelief, he saw a jar filled with brown insects, a nearby pot containing strange eggs, and a box beside it holding dried snake carcasses. He was so stunned he couldn't move, mumbling, Lizards. Feeling as if he were in a den of venomous beasts, he exclaimed, This is unbelievable. A thought raced through Duong's son's mind. Could he be raising these poisonous creatures and breeding them? Even the renowned Duong family, masters of poisons and venomous creatures, only went as far as managing and extracting toxins. They would never dream of breeding them on this scale. He closed the door, stepped outside, and mumbled to himself. It was a small twist of fate that allowed me to save my beloved daughter's life. Clenching his fists, Duong's son whispered, "Could this young hero truly be that twist of fate?" Suddenly, a voice called from behind him, "Senior." He turned around and replied, "Young hero." Duong rushed to his side and asked, "What happened to your arm? Are you injured anywhere else?" Duong's son placed a hand on his shoulder and answered, "It's nothing serious. In fact, what I need to tell you." Suddenly, he sensed something strange and muttered, "What is this?" A malevolent aura erupted from behind the young man as a door suddenly shattered. A mysterious figure appeared, radiating immense killing intent. Its terrifying smile revealing rows of sharp teeth. Duong's son quickly pushed Tijulong aside and shouted, "Young hero, get out of here." Confused, the boy couldn't understand what was happening and called out to his senior. Meanwhile, the stranger had already taken an attack stance. Van Tuan lunged forward, obliterating everything in his path. As he charged straight for Duong's son, he channeled his energy into his arm and unleashed a mighty blow, causing the older man to cough up blood from the severe injury. Duong's son staggered, realizing the terrifying power of his enemy. He muttered, "A master on par with my own father." Duong's son then screamed, "Young hero, run!" Just as he spoke, the attacker seized Tu Long by the neck and lifted him high into the air. Choking for breath, the boy cried out, "Since..." Van Tuong laughed victoriously. "I heard the Duong family had entered Hainan, so I came for a look. But it seems the myriad venom, Divine Lord Snake is injured and all alone." Duong's son struggled to his feet, coughed, and demanded, "Who are you, senior? Why are you tormenting this young hero and me?" Van Tuong laughed loudly. "You will know when you see this face in my crimson hand. Your father made me this way. I am the Bloodhand Asura, Tak Van Tuong." He recalled the man's former appearance and mumbled, "Tak Van Tuong. I heard he was poisoned in the head and fell from a sea cliff. It seems he survived." Seeing Tiu Long struggling in his grasp, Duong's son yelled, "That young hero has nothing to do with us. Let him go." He then offered, "I will trade my life for the boys." The man tightened his grip on Tiu Long's neck and replied, "I refuse. If you so much as touch me, you will die." This powerful fiend would surely bring chaos to the world. Duong's son grit his teeth in anger, muttering, "In the end, that monster has no intention of releasing the young hero." At that moment, Tu Long could no longer endure the strangulation. Van Tuong cackled. "Die." The boy gasped out with great difficulty, "Please, save me." Innumerable small centipedes swarmed out from his body, latching on to the fiend's arm. They bit relentlessly into Van Tuong, causing him to panic. "What is this?" "Centipedes." Van Tuong tried to shake off the creatures, shouting, "How can mere centipedes possibly harm me?" The insects injected their venom into his body, making him vomit blood. Finally, Van Tuong collapsed, screaming, "Damn it." He then lay motionless at Tu Long's feet. The boy stammered in fear, "Oh my God, he's dead." He nudged the body with his foot and called out, "Hey, are you still alive?" Duong's son stood there with his mouth wide open in utter amazement, before a smile like he had struck gold spread across his face as he murmured, "Not just a guest of honor, but this young hero himself." Tu Long poked Van Tuong's body with a stick. Ultimately, he became a member of the Duong family at the Tua's temple. A few days after Van Tuong's defeat, a sigh of relief echoed through the room. Ngo Tu Long was tending to the weak Duong's son, who lay in bed. The old man spoke up, "Thank you, young hero." Hearing his voice, Tu Long said, "We cannot delay any longer. If you tell me your location, senior, I will go and check." After speaking, he turned away, scratching his chin thoughtfully. That won't work. I can't leave you here alone, senior, but I can't call for a doctor either." Hearing this, Duong's son quickly said, "I am fine. Do not worry. A few days of rest will be enough for me to recover." The young man felt a wave of admiration. The old man had lost so much blood, yet he spoke with such composure. He remembered how the man had tried to reassure him while coughing. "I'm fine." Tu Long immediately argued back, "Please don't say that. Your condition is terrible." The man's condition looked grave. Duong's son answered with a faint breath, "I'm fine," trying to keep the boy from worrying further. He then added, "I am a man of the martial world." Hearing this, Tu Long's eyes widened in surprise. "A martial artist?" he asked with a rush of excitement. "You mean people who can leap through the air and use powerful palm strikes?" The old man smiled and replied, "Not everyone can do that, but you could say that's the gist of it." The young man thought to himself in amazement, "How incredible. This world is truly different from what I know. Otherwise, seeing a centipede the size of a house wouldn't make any sense." Duong's son's voice cut through the boy's train of thought. "In any case, I am grateful. This old man saved your life, so forgive my rudeness, but allow me to formally introduce myself." He presented himself. "I am Duong Tuet's son of the Sichuan Tang Clan." The boy quickly replied, "My name is Nuit." The old man closed his eyes in approval. Tu Long means little dragon. A fine name, indeed. He then looked at the boy and asked, "I have many questions for you. If you don't mind answering?" The boy replied politely, "Yes, please, ask away." The old man posed his question. "That black, venomous creature, ... Is it a wugong? The boy glanced down at the larvae on his body, prodding them gently before confirming. Yes, these are the larvae of the azure-banded wugong. Duong's son was so stunned he shot upright, exclaiming, "Are you saying you've tamed the larvae of the azure-banded wugong?" Startled by the old man's outburst, the boy yelped, "Senior, please, you must lie back down." But the man ignored his plea and pressed on. "How could you possibly tame such a creature?" the boy stammered. "While I was waiting for you." I see." The old man suddenly cut him off. "Did you raise these poisonous insects yourself?" The boy hesitated for a moment. Well, ... He seemed a bit shy before speaking up. "It might be a rather long story. Would you like to hear it?" The old man cleared his throat, covering his mouth. "That's fine. Go ahead and tell me," the boy began. "Well, it all started with the azure-banded wugong's egg. And so, the story began. Outside the temple, the night was still, as if listening intently to 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Long's tale. After hearing everything, Duong's son asked in astonishment, "Wait, are you saying you found the eggs and raised them yourself?" The boy replied, "Yes, that's right. I could even predict when the eggs would hatch." The old man broke into a sweat, thinking, who could possibly know the exact day an egg will hatch? "How is that possible?" The boy spoke up. "Please wait a moment, senior." With that, 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Long opened a cabinet, brought out some creatures and asked, "Would you like to see these?" He held one out, presenting it with pride. "This is an ordinary cave lizard. It has a yellow-striped body and a white-striped tail," he continued, showing another. "And this one, I selectively bred those with large white stripes on their tails, resulting in these two distinct colors." Duong's son stared at the creatures before him and gasped. "Could it be?" he shouted. "Are you saying you created this coloration?" The boy confirmed happily. "That's right. Isn't it beautiful?" The old man swallowed hard, asking, "Then, does that mean if you breed highly venomous creatures, you can create an even stronger species?" The boy was a little surprised by his question. His mind raced with the possibilities. "Theoretically, yes." After some thought, he said, "If you know which one has the stronger venom, it's definitely possible." He hesitated, but that would be difficult. The old man suddenly raised his voice. "What do you mean, possible?" The boy flinched as the man placed a hand on his shoulder. He made a serious offer. "You must join my clan." The boy exclaimed in shock. "Huh?" The old man shouted again. "If you join our Temps clan, we will teach you every secret martial arts technique we possess without holding anything back. Precious herbs, spirit plants, and any kind of poison you desire will be within your grasp." He passionately continued, "A boy like you might even be able to capture or raise one of the legendary 10 great poisonous creatures of the Central Plains." As if that wasn't tempting enough, Duong soon played his ultimate card. "And this is no empty boast, but one of the 3 treasures of the Central Plains is my own daughter." 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Long hastily tried to stop him. "Wait a minute," he asked. "What did you just say?" The old man also seemed surprised for a moment. Then, as if realizing something, he burst into laughter. "You're young, but you are a man. After all, it's only natural. My daughter is one of the 3 great treasures of the Central Plains." Seeing the misunderstanding, the boy cried out, "No, it's not about that kind of condition." He pictured the 10 great poisonous creatures the old man mentioned, clenching his fists as he asked loudly, "Are the 10 great poisonous creatures of the Central Plains as formidable as the azure gong?" The old man emphasized. "Of course, without a doubt," he smirked smugly. "The azure-banded wugong is impressive, but it's a low-tier poison creature that can't compare to the 10 greats of the Central Plains." He described creatures ranging from a centipede as large as a house to one that shimmered like pure gold. The boy's imagination ran wild with amazement. But the old man continued, "No matter what you imagine, the reality is far beyond it." Duong's son sighed softly. This was truly a strange turn of events. He looked at 𝐒𝐒𝐿ong's brightly excited face, and the 2 larvae nestled in his clothes, feeling certain he had succeeded. 2 days later, at the Taoist temple, the disciples of the Duong family cried out in shock. "Is it true? Has the blood-hand Asura, Ven 𝐒𝐒𝐿, truly appeared?" Duong's son confirmed. "Indeed, I was nearly in grave danger. I never expected his secluded training would elevate him to a level rivaling my father's." The disciples paled and stammered. "Tietzten, that means?" One of them was too frightened to form a sentence. "So then?" Another began, as a thought suddenly struck him. "Wait a minute, Master, does that mean you killed him? Have you achieved the legendary myriad poisons realm?" Another disciple quickly added his congratulations. Wonderful news. The rest hurriedly joined in. "Oh, congratulations, Master," he sighed, shaking his head. "No, that's not what happened." He continued, "The one who killed him was not me, but this young warrior right here." A disciple gasped in disbelief. Him, this young warrior." After speaking, he turned and grabbed 𝐒𝐒𝐿ong's hands, shouting for confirmation. "It was you, wasn't it?" The group of disciples immediately bowed. "Thank you, young hero, for saving our master's life. Master of the Sichuan Duong family, are you perhaps an enlightened sage who remains eternally youthful?" 𝐒𝐒𝐿ong was completely baffled by their words and asked, What? Eternally? What now?" Duong's son calmly intervened. "Young warrior, I believe there's a misunderstanding. Would you mind showing him?" After a moment's thought, he agreed. "All right, little guys, come on out." The disciples' eyes widened at the sight of creatures squirming and peeking out from beneath his robes. The tiny larvae chirped as they looked around. Upon seeing the larvae clearly, a disciple exclaimed in amazement, "Oh, aren't those heavenly These very creatures are what defeated Van Tu." At this, one of the disciples cried out in fear, What did you say? Is their venom safe?" Another disciple shouted, unable to hide his admiration, "You actually tamed the azure-striped heavenly How can such a young warrior possess such incredible talent?" Duong-sun continued gently, "That is why I have decided to accept this young warrior into our family." A disciple cheered excitedly, "Oh, young hero, this is a truly wonderful opportunity." Duong-sun's voice then cut through their excitement. He clenched his fist, his expression turning serious. "It seems we cannot afford any more delays." Tulong asked, "Sin Yu, is there something else you're searching for?" Duong-sun paused in thought before speaking gravely. "The Blood Hand Asura." He practiced the Blood Hand Poison Claw, a terrifying demonic art that requires human blood and marrow to advance. What kind of insane demonic art is that? Tulong thought in horror. Duong-sun had decided that if Van Tuong had left behind any manuals or successors, the threat must be eliminated. Such a cruel and evil art cannot be allowed to surface in the martial world ever again. He clenched his fist and asked, "If he captured anyone, we have a duty to help them, do we not?" The disciples agreed in unison. "Of course, Master." He then turned to make a request. "Young warrior, would you be willing to lend a hand? After all, you understand the terrain of Hainan Island." Tulong fell silent, appearing deep in thought. At that moment, the larvae crawled closer and chirped. He closed his eyes, realizing that joining the Duan family meant accepting a lifelong mission. Normally, an internship is meant to observe the atmosphere of an organization, and it's a chance to evaluate the character of its leader, isn't it? He replied cheerfully. "I understand. Once you've recovered, I will give you my full support." Hearing this, the disciples listened with great interest. Duong-sun offered his praise. "Your way of thinking is very astute, young warrior." A radiant smile spread across Tiolong's face, filled with excitement for his future plans. Everyone began to prepare their belongings for the journey. They were determined to uncover every secret the island held. The task ahead would certainly not be easy, but united, they believed they would succeed. The sound of waves lapped against the shore. "A very astute way of thinking," he thought, letting out a smile. His smile was brilliant. "Of course I'll help. Saving people is always the right choice." He appeared humble on the outside, but inwardly he thought, "I must use this trip to learn everything about the Sichuan Duan family. A true talent always interviews their employer back," he mused smugly. 3 days after the old master Duong-sun had recovered his strength, the group consisting of him, Nui Chulong, and the disciples set out to find the Blood Hand Azura's hideout. They stopped at a village next to an abandoned temple to gather information. They asked the locals if anyone had gone missing, and one villager replied with concern, "You're asking about people who disappeared." An old man recalled, "Over the past year, 1 or 2 people have vanished in the forest, but it happens infrequently." Duong-sun stroked his beard in contemplation as the group clasped their hands in thanks. On behalf of the group, Duong-sun said, "Thank you, village chief." The old man responded warmly, "Not at all. It is a great honor for me to assist the Duong family." He then said, "We will take our leave now." The chief replied, "May your journey be safe." Unfortunately, they hadn't gathered any new information and had to press on. Tiolong felt puzzled. This village seems perfectly normal, too. How strange. Duong-sun was lost in thought, considering something before he finally answered. "Given that he found us and revealed himself, I was certain he was hiding nearby. This search is proving to be incredibly difficult." Tiolong also thought it was odd. How could he have not left a single trace? Tiolong recalled the suddenness of Van Tuong's attack and asked himself, what were his exact words? As the memory surfaced, he suddenly blurted out, "See, do you remember what he said right when he appeared?" Duong-sun turned to him and replied, "I don't recall clearly. What about you?" Tiolong tried to remember. At that moment, I was struck and sent flying." He then continued, ... So that means, he said it to you. So, his analysis was that he knew the Thames family was on Hainan Island. Correct? The man asked. "Is that it?" He continued his breakdown. "If so, that means someone must have known the Thames family, arrived on Hainan, and tipped off Zhao Yongsheng, right?" The man nodded. "That's likely." Zhao Long's eyes lit up with an idea. "Then this is simple. We just need to verify the route we traveled on Hainan Island, based on our descriptions. If we use a portrait to ask around, we're sure to find a witness." The man and his disciples looked at the boy in surprise. Tang Shan said cheerfully, "I hadn't considered that. Absolutely brilliant. If the Blood Hand Asura, Zhao Yongsheng, said that, he must have gotten the information from someone who encountered us." While the boy blushed from the praise, the man made a decision. "All right, easy enough. We move out immediately." They continued their journey to a village shrouded in a heavy, somber atmosphere. As they entered, Zhao Long spoke up. "Family head, I heard talk at the port about a village like this on Hainan Island." Tang Shan observed their surroundings and surmised, "It seems this is a place inhabited only by women." He gave the order, "Let's go in and see." According to the young master, the women here shouldn't be too hostile toward us. The disciples responded in unison, "Yes, family head." Inside the village, the people seemed incredibly listless. Many looked dazed, with some even lying collapsed in front of their homes. A villager sat working in silence. They called out, "Is anyone here?" Their presence finally drew the villagers' attention as the group stepped forward. A local asked, What business do you have in the village of women? Shan was somewhat taken aback when he saw the village chief leading a little girl by the hand, accompanied by 2 young men. He lifted his head and introduced himself. I am Shan, head of the Temps family from We have come here for a reason. While everyone else was talking, Jialong quietly scanned the area. He thought to himself that the village was completely devoid of vitality. Even the children had no energy. A strange idea struck him as he wondered, what is wrong with these people? Looking around, he saw that everyone was lethargic and thought, could it be that they've all been poisoned? The village chief spoke up. A disappearance? I know nothing about it, because nothing has happened here. His expression soured as he said, go back. Shan tried to persuade him, but it seemed the village's population had already dwindled significantly. The old man shouted, this is not your concern. Go back. Both Shan and Jialong were stunned by his aggressive attitude. Shan turned and whispered, young master, I was told the people here were very friendly. Jialong, completely confused, replied, yeah. At that very moment, the child led by the chief suddenly collapsed. The old man cried out in a panic, Ma Xin, why did you fall like that? The distraught old man burst into tears. Oh heavens, Ma Xin, no, you're the only family I have left. The old man said in anguish, why must you also be afflicted with such a monstrous disease? Shan knelt on one knee before the old man and offered, elder chief, I know a little about medicine. Is there anything I can do to help? The old man asked in return, medicine from the Central Plains. Shan replied, yes. Well, I'm no physician. I do have some knowledge of medical arts. May I examine the child's condition? The old man, desperate, hastily agreed to his help. The village chief began to tell his story. The truth is, some time ago, a wicked illness appeared in our village. The children started dying one by one, while the adults grew weaker every day. Shan placed a comforting hand on the old man's shoulder. I see. Then, let me take a look. The old man's eyes welled with tears as he said, I am in your debt. Thank you so much. The chief urged them, please, hurry inside. Then he shouted at the villagers, what are you all waiting for? Get the doctor and his party inside now. The group rushed inside. As they ran, Jialong asked a disciple, Senior Yu, no medicine as well? The man replied, ah yes, he explained, our Temps family's martial arts involve handling toxins, so we are also quite skilled in pharmacology. Besides, our martial arts begin with a thorough understanding of the body, so some medical knowledge is essential. A thought suddenly occurred to the boy. I assumed you were just an assassination group that specialized in poisons, but joining the Sichuantain family means learning medicine alongside their terrifying poison arts, which is quite fascinating. The disciple immediately added with a cruel edge. Ah, occasionally we capture criminals and inject them with experimental poisons to observe the reaction. It's also quite fascinating. Hearing that, the boy was horrified and thought to himself, does he mean ... human experiments? He pictured Shan and his band of ruthless disciples, and a shiver went down his spine. That's a bit too much, he thought. They really are a terrifying bunch. The sky remained overcast as the first rays of the new day began to illuminate a single house. Ma Zan lay motionless, an unsettling blue aura radiating from her body, her eyes squeezed shut. Shan explained briefly to the chief. First, I've transferred my internal energy into her to suppress the toxin. The old man replied, oh, thank you, sir. The old man stroked Ma Jin's head and said sadly, this is my only granddaughter. I beg you to help her. Shan asked, it seems her pulse is unstable. How odd has this child's heart been weak since birth? The old man replied, her condition only became this severe in the last 6 months. Last year, it wasn't only my granddaughter. Many others began to endure a terrible sickness. The old man explained, we call it the accursed sickness. That is why I urged everyone to turn back at the main gate. It instantly clicked for Tu Along, who murmured, so that's what's going on. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 proposed, Elder, I will first prepare a prescription to aid the heart. Please gather all the villagers for me so we may test its effects. Overcome with emotion, the old man began to sob. Thank you, sir, the elder repeated gratefully. I am forever in your debt. All the while, Tu Long quietly observed 𝐒𝐒𝐒 with a gentle smile. As night descended, a disciple softly approached, family head. He then said, you have worked tirelessly, examining everyone. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 replied, thank you. CSUB, what is the current state of the patients? He pondered for a moment before saying, this is truly a bizarre affliction. He even analyzed the symptoms. Weakness, swollen eyes, an erratic pulse, and a mild fever. While the symptoms differ slightly, the most severe cases all point to a problem with the heart. A thought suddenly struck him, and he asked, and what of the young hero? CSUB reported. The young hero seemed exhausted after assisting everyone and has already fallen asleep. I have taken him to a room to rest. An image of his disciples carrying the boy to his quarters flashed through his mind. The disciple sighed. The young hero truly gave it his all. He said, for one who has not trained in martial arts, keeping pace with us must have been incredibly draining. He added, we should go and check on the young hero's condition. CSUB replied, allow me to lead you to him. The door to the room opened gently, revealing Tu Long inside, fast asleep and completely unaware. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 didn't enter at first, choosing to observe quietly from the doorway. But then, he threw the door open and rushed toward the bed. Without warning, his hands shot out and struck the boy with a sharp slap, causing him to cry out in pain. Jolted awake, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stared at him with a look of stunned outrage. "Senor," he exclaimed, wondering why he'd suddenly stopped. In that moment, the unexpected blow from 𝐒𝐒𝐒 left him completely bewildered. Clutching his cheek, he stammered in confusion. "What was that?" He retreated toward the wall, asking, "What in the world is happening?" "Senior, that really hurt." 𝐒𝐒𝐒's tone softened instantly. "My apologies. I was only trying to catch an insect that was on your cheek." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 furrowed his brow and asked, "An insect?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 said awkwardly. "Please, just listen to me." He glanced through the crack in the door, saying, "I only wanted to look in on you before I rested." Suddenly, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 spotted a bug and said, "There it is." Out of nowhere, an insect had flown and landed right on your face. "Do you understand?" He pointed to the bug with a sharp gaze, saying, "Hainan Island has many poisonous insects I am unfamiliar with, which can be quite dangerous. That's why I reacted without thinking." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 held up the insect in his hand, saying, "Look here, see how large this bug is?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stared at the insect in his hand for a moment, stunned. Suddenly, he said to himself, "Wait a second, why is this insect here?" He seemed to have realized something crucial. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked, "Senior, although the patients showed different symptoms, they all share a common abnormality, don't they?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 confirmed, "That is correct. Are you saying you know the cause of the accursed sickness spreading through this village?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 pointed to the bug in his hand and declared, "This insect is the very cause." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 gasped in disbelief. "What did you say?" "This is a species from the kissing bug family. It is named that because it often feeds on the blood from the eyes or lips of sleeping people. This type is agile and even faster than a mosquito." "Which has earned it the names vampire bug or assassin bug?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 used a cloth to wipe away the bug's blood. He said, "The insect itself is not venomous, but its stomach is filled with dangerous parasites." He continued, "When bitten, a person becomes infected through its waste. The trypanosoma parasite, or Chagas disease, is what it transmits. It is one of the top 7 causes on the list. That is the list of creatures that are most fatal to humans." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked the village chief, "Are the dogs in the village having trouble breathing? Or are their symptoms similar to the humans?" The village chief replied frantically, "Yes, they are." "Does this mean this bug is the cause of it all?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sighed. "It's possible, but we can't be sure just yet." The old man wondered, "If so, can my granddaughter be saved?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 answered, "With the right medicine, it is possible." But then, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 let out a confident laugh. Turning to 𝐶SEB, "What do you think of my ability to judge character?" 𝐶SEB replied cheerfully, "I now truly recognize the young hero's value." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stepped forward, asking, "Why are you two acting this way?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 declared, "Young hero, join our Szechuan clan." A stunned 𝐒𝐒𝐒 replied, "Huh?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 said confidently, "I am inviting you to be inducted into our Szechuan clan." He was completely lost and mumbled, "But why?" The elder explained, "There is a creature known as a 𝐤 insect. It is also known as a voodoo insect or 𝐤 poison. This type of insect is raised by wicked people in the Central Plains." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 continued, "Those villains make people ingest these insects. They then inflict periodic agony on their victims, or they are used to control people according to their will." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 responded in shock, "To control people like that is terrifying." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 confirmed that the power is indeed real, but countless people in the Jianghu have lost their lives because of this monstrous 𝐤. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 fell silent, thinking over 𝐒𝐒𝐒. Join in the Tang Clan might be his only path to finding an antidote. The knowledge of 𝐤 poison here is incredibly deep and mysterious. The village chief remained standing there, his face filled with anxiety for his grandchild. "I'm begging you, young hero, please save that poor girl." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 nodded. "I will do everything I can to help everyone." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 looked at him with eyes full of admiration and high expectations. This young man truly possessed an extraordinary spirit. 𝐶SUB also nodded in agreement with his master's decision. The atmosphere in the room suddenly became unusually still. Only the sound of wind whistling through the old wooden doorframe could be heard. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 affirmed that the power was real, but countless people in the Jianghu had already lost their lives. It was all because of the strange and wicked evil known as the 𝐤 insect. He explained that some had even murdered their own children before taking their own lives, while others betrayed their families to serve these wicked forces. Hearing this, the village chief broke down in tears beside them. "Oh heavens, my poor Ma-chan." As he wept, 𝐸 continued, "For generations, the masters of the martial world have searched for an antidote to this grotesque curse, a cure that could either expel the parasite or simply dissolve it." Zhao Long was stunned. "That's almost unbelievable." Then, with a sudden flourish, 𝐸 produced an item from his robes and declared loudly, "If the martial world truly had such an antidote, where else would it be from?" He proudly revealed a round pill. "It could only be from our Szechuan clan. If this pill can dissolve a tumor the size of a fist, what chance do these microscopic creatures possibly have?" 𝐸 held out the glistening pellet and announced, "The 𝐒𝐒𝐒-𝐑𝐚. Just a small piece is all that's needed." Zhao Long's eyes widened in awe. 𝐒𝐒𝐒-𝑑𝐚, he murmured. "Even the name of the cure sounds powerful." Turning to the tearful village chief, he said, "So please sir, you don't need to worry any longer." 𝐸 confirmed, "Your granddaughter can be saved." True to his word, starting with her, the villagers slowly began to recover their health. The chief embraced his granddaughter with joy. "Oh, Ma-chan, we are so fortunate." The warm gratitude of the villagers was their greatest reward. Looking at their joyful faces, it seemed the rumors about the optimistic spirit of the matriarchal clan were true. Duong-sun clapped Xiaolong on the shoulder, saying, "If this young hero hadn't found the cause, their true savior wouldn't be me, but him." The young villagers cheered in unison. "Thank you, young hero, thank you. So much praise." Xiaolong replied shyly, "It was nothing." But the crowd roared back. "The young hero is our village's savior. Even though the Tang Clan's medicine saved him, Master Duong-sun gave all the credit to me," watching proudly as I received their thanks. It was truly moving to see him take such genuine joy in my success, as if it were his own. The young men of the village surrounded Xiaolong, hoisting him into the air in a triumphant celebration. A short time later, the village chief approached Duong-sun. "About that matter you mentioned at the village gate, what was it?" he asked. The chief continued, "You were looking for a village where people went missing." Duong-sun replied, "That is correct. Why do you ask?" With a worried expression, the chief said, "I wish to repay your kindness." So I made some inquiries and heard a very strange story. Everyone fell silent to hear the old man's tale. "In our village, there's a woman who married into our clan from another place. A few years ago, in her parents' village, a bizarre event occurred. The villagers started disappearing one by one." Duong-san was shocked. He glanced around and muttered, "A lead." He then asked urgently, "Where is this village?" The chief replied, "It is a small settlement to the west." When they arrived, they were met with total desolation. Duong-sun covered his nose and said, "There are but..." One of his men added, "This must be the place, master." He suddenly gasped, "What is this?" The piled corpses were not just human remains, but skeletons as well. Duong-sun spoke, his voice grim. "How chilling. There are poison corpses as well, a toxin generated by the decay." A large, bearded man exclaimed, "This is enough to freeze your blood. We must not let the young hero see this." Xiaolong replied, "I have already seen everything." Suddenly, he noticed something and asked, "What is that over there?" What was it? He saw sharp talons and the beak of a bizarre bird, devouring the severed head of a snake. He immediately picked up a stone in his hand. "I cannot allow that bird to desecrate the dead." He hurled the stone with all his might, shouting, "Get out of there." But Duong-sun cried out, "Wait." The stone whizzed past, startling the bird. It slammed its talons to the ground, its eyes burning with murderous intent as it prepared to attack. "Stop! Something is not right." The bird beat its wings and rose into the air, radiating an aura of pure malice. Xiaolong watched in terror as a black mist from the bird swept over the skeletons, causing them to dissolve. He whispered, "Impossible. It's melting them." Immediately, a hand clamped over his mouth. Duong-sun yelled, "Everyone, get back. That is a j-" Everyone instantly dropped to the ground in a circle. Duong-sun explained, "When the Jinio spreads its wings, it can bring death to all. Its beak gleams like bronze and is sharp as a spear, its body covered in deep, purple feathers." His two attendants listened with grim faces. Duong-sun continued, "When angered, it stretches its wings, poisoning and killing everything nearby. Jinio is the name given to this species." Xiaolong spoke up, then exclaimed excitedly, "Could it be one of the 10 great poisonous killers?" Duong-sun nodded. Xiaolong's eyes shone brightly with excitement. "That's right, it's the one at the very top of the 10 great poisonous killers, hailed as the emperor of all creatures. The Jinio emperor of the 10 great poisons," he whispered. "Absolutely terrifying. It makes all other venomous creatures on this earth seem like cute pets." Xiaolong was overjoyed to see the Jinio and said, "It is truly a wonder." An emerald mist swirled through the air, seemingly drawn by the potent venom of the snake swarm. The others whispered that the legendary 𝐒𝐒𝐒 only preys upon the heads of the most venomous serpents. He nervously wondered if this was some kind of omen. The old man confirmed it. "One might live a lifetime and never witness a 𝐒𝐒𝐒. The creature is so rare. It has only been spotted once in the last century." As Xiaolong stared in awe, Tempshan asked, "What is it, young warrior? Surely you don't intend to capture it?" Shocking the crowd, he let out a great laugh. "You want to try and catch it?" Xiaolong boldly agreed, but Tempshan just smirked, knowing the creature's lethal nature. Then, his tone shifted. "Kid, you seem to have a keen interest in the 10 great killing poisons. If so, there might be a way." Xiaolong's eyes widened in surprise. "Is there truly a method?" Tang Shan affirmed. "Master the secret poison arts of the Tang Clan, and your body will become immune to all venoms, even the 𝐒𝐒𝐒𝐷s." He continued, "In this entire world, only the martial arts of our Tang Clan can neutralize such a powerful toxin." He gestured to himself, adding, "But the issue is, the Tang Clan never teaches its secret arts to outsiders." He emphasized, "As much as I want to help you, young warrior, as clan leader, I cannot break our family's sacred rules." Xiaolong's voice filled with hope as he yelled, "If I become a member of the Tang Clan, could I learn these arts? And if I achieve the state of 100 poison immunity, could I truly resist the 𝐒𝐒𝐒𝐷's venom?" Tempshan replied with absolute confidence, "Without a doubt. If you decide now, young warrior, I will personally oversee your training, and will prepare a proper initiation ceremony." While the others watched with skeptical eyes, Xiaolong was filled with trust. The old man let out a hearty laugh as he gazed at the boy. With a cunning glint in his eye, he added, "But if you hesitate for too long, I might have to reconsider this offer." You know, a blush of pure excitement crept onto Zhao Long's face. He declared, I accept. I will join the Tang Clan. Please guide me. Clan leader. Shan roared with laughter. Truly, excellent. He clapped the boy's shoulder. From this day forward, you're one of the Tang Clan. In the lair of the blood-handed Rick, footprints were spotted near a pool of poison when a voice suddenly called out. Clan leader, a bearded man, called, presenting a book. It was hidden inside the cave. Shan flipped through the pages. Confirming the blood-scribed text was the manual of the blood-hand poison ancestor. Zhao Long gasped, written in blood. The clan leader closed the book. It is time for us to return. Zhao Long was curious. Are we heading to see? Shan replied, we must retrieve the green centipede's inner core and its manual. Remembering his own creatures? Zhao Long asked. Can we make a quick stop at the Toa's temple? I need to release a few of my friends. The old man agreed. Of course, I will also prepare your supplies for the journey. Tang Shan turned to the group. Then, let us depart. But as Zhao Long glanced back, his eyes caught something unusual. Pointing toward the cave, he exclaimed, there's something strange over there. The bearded man questioned, what are you talking about? They all gathered around the spot. This, someone asked. A collective gasp followed. This is a feather from the Cam Dike. All eyes focused on the feather as it pulsed with a violet light. Shan carefully donned a glove before picking it up to examine it. He produced a special case for it. Consider this a gift to welcome you to the Tang Clan. You seem quite fond of it. Zhao Long was overjoyed. Thank you, senior. No, ... I mean, thank you, clan leader. Shan smiled back. Everything is fine, but I am not very fond of that title. He continued. Perhaps after the oath ceremony, we can find a more suitable title for each other. Zhao Long mumbled in surprise. An oath ceremony? Is that like a formal initiation, right? At that very moment, at the Tang Clan estate in Jun collapsed from his injuries as clan members rushed to support him. A subordinate reported, Grand Elder Temps Buxing has already arrived. The old man roared. Hurry! How is Yin? The subordinate replied. She is still holding on. Sir, the elder commanded, take me to Yinner at once. As the doors swung open, Stun appeared, calling for Yin. Everyone by the bedside bowed. Greetings, Grand Elder. The lady of the house cried. Father, he replied, daughter-in-law. Jun revealed the pill. This is the inner core of the Azure Bandit centipede. She covered her mouth, fighting back tears of relief. You actually managed to get it. They watched as the elder prepared to give Yinner the medicine. Her face was pale as she gasped for breath. Tang Jun softly called her name. He held the pill. We were almost too late. Thankfully, I made it in time. The girl's mother pleaded. Father, please, give it to her quickly. He carefully placed the inner core into Yinner's mouth. A stream of emerald energy radiated from her body as Jun checked her pulse. The Grand Elder then began circulating his internal energy to help her. Her mother watched anxiously, whispering, Yinner, please, you must wake up. Exhausted, Zhao Long slumped down and thought, I'd heard the Central Plains were vast, but I never imagined they were this endless. A journey of a month and a half from Hainan, by boat, past Hangzhou, had finally brought him to Sichuan, to the gates of the Tang Clan. His guide announced, this is the Tang Clan of Sichuan, young warrior. Zhao Long stared in disbelief. This is really it, he thought, gazing at the sight before him. Behold, the majestic estate of the Tang Clan. The guide explained that this entire mountain belonged to the Sichuan Temps family, which is why it's called 𝐸𝐺 Mountain. Zhao Long could hardly believe his eyes. Members of the Temps clan rushed out, shouting, the master has returned. We welcome you, sir. The sight left him utterly stunned as he murmured, are all of these people really from the Sichuan Temps clan? The crowd was immense, and from behind them emerged a girl in a red dress, her footsteps echoing a joyful welcome for their master's return. Tang Shan's eyes widened when he heard someone call out, Father. It was his beloved daughter Yinner, who had finally awoken and was now running to embrace him, sobbing with joy. Overjoyed, Shan cried out, Yinner, are you really all right now? She clung to him tightly and said, Father, I'm so sorry. Then Yinner looked up, asking, but what about you, Father? Are you hurt? Zhao Long gazed at her, whispering to himself, I have truly never seen anyone who radiates such breathtaking beauty. He turned to his daughter to make an introduction. There's someone I want you to meet. Tang Shan said, Zhao Long, this is my daughter, Shan. Zhao Long immediately froze on the spot. Her father continued, I remember what you told me, about the scent of grass. Hearing this, Yinner asked in confusion, grass? Tang Shan playfully flicked her forehead and said, he meant a weed, of course. This made Yinner's face flush in surprise, and the two just stared at each other in silence. Zhao Long then recalled the man's earlier words. My daughter is one of the 3 great treasures of the Central Plains. No, not that kind of weed, he protested, feeling deeply embarrassed. This was the famous poison flower, Yinner, the sole daughter of the prestigious Tang Clan. Ever since she was a child, Yinner had carried a secret sorrow deep within her heart, one that few could ever understand. During a conversation between 2 clan elders, one had remarked that her talents were still unremarkable, while the other merely praised her looks. They claimed her appearance wasn't enough to rank her among the 3 great beauties of the martial world. Yinner had hidden behind a tree, forced to listen to their harsh judgments. The man with the goatee had said, we just need to find her a suitable husband, merely to keep up appearances. The other replied, I told him he should take more concubines. Why does the clan master continue to refuse? Their bitter words reached Yinner's ears, and she whispered, That's not it, mother. Father is not the one at fault. She was determined to prove her worth to the clan elders by perfecting her martial arts. She would show them that even as a woman, she could be a great asset to the family. But in her haste, she made a grave error, creating an inner demon that consumed her. Ultimately, this mistake is what caused her to fall into a deep coma. When she finally awoke, thanks to a special medicine and the help of Tempsjon, she found everyone gathered around her, their faces etched with worry. Lady Tench cried out with relief. You're alive! Tears streamed down Yinner's face. Mother, what am I going to do? She sobbed. I'm so sorry, mother, she thought to herself. So it's all over. I just wanted to be useful to our clan. Yinner then looked towards Tempsjon and spoke. I've lost all of my internal energy. Tempsjon took her hand gently. Silly girl, he said. Is it because you feel you've burdened the family? You have finally achieved the very thing you've always wanted. Stop crying and be happy now. Yinner looked up, completely baffled. The 100 poisons. Technique. As she raised her hand, she noticed a faint, pale blue aura radiating from it, leaving her utterly shocked. Yinner turned to him and asked, Grandfather, what is this? Tempsjon smiled warmly. Yinner, there is something I must tell you. This power didn't just save your life. It helped you achieve the heavenly poison art level, far beyond the 100 poisons. Yinner could only wonder. Her comment sent a wave of playful laughter through the room, while Zhao Long could only mutter to himself in embarrassment. However, Tempsjon stood by with a smug grin, enjoying Zhao Long's discomfort. Don't look so pleased with yourself, Zhao Long thought. He forced a smile and said, The clan master has quite a sense of humor. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. Young lady, he continued, I heard you were unwell. It's a great relief to see that you've recovered. Yinner simply replied, Indeed. Ah, she said with a bright smile, it's an honor to finally meet you. I am the poison flower. Tempsjon, thank you for saving my life, young master. I, the poison flower, will never forget this day. Yinner's introduction left Zhao Long completely mesmerized. She's so beautiful, he thought, but a sudden voice snapped him out of his trance. What was that? Tempsjon whispered. That is sound transmission, he continued. Even a weed can be quite beautiful, don't you think? Tell me, Spider Lily, do you want to try picking this one? Hearing this, Zhao Long's face turned beet red. The scene shifts to a bathhouse where he is soaking in the steaming water. Nearby, his little centipedes are sound asleep in a basin. This is so embarrassing, I could die, he muttered. Noticing one of the small centipedes had woken up, he complained, You guys usually cling to me all day long. This hot water isn't good for you. Why don't you get into this bucket for a while? As if they understood his words, they immediately crawled inside. Faced with such an adorable sight, Zhao Long found it strange. It seems like they can actually understand me, he mused with a chuckle. But staring at a naked body, like that, is enough to make a person shy. Suddenly, the creatures panicked and scurried to hide in the bucket. He couldn't help but laugh. You guys are hilarious, Zhao Long said, recalling Elder Jubai's words about the and how these creatures were considered spirit beasts. Then, Tempsjon's teasing words echoed in his mind. That spider lily is quite beautiful. Do you want to try picking it? Unable to calm his racing heart, he decided to leave at once. On his way out, he saw several people gathered, deep in discussion. Tempsjon called him over, needing to give him some important instructions. He looked at the boy with a serious, meaningful gaze, and Zhao Long could feel the immense weight of the senior's expectations. He vowed to do everything in his power not to let them down. These were the first steps on a new and difficult path, but his heart was filled with unwavering resolve. From a distance, Yinner watched the young hero's departing figure. A faint smile graced her beautiful features as the elders continued their serious discussion. Tempsjon. He lifted his teacup and spoke. So, shall we settle things amicably? But Huan shook his head. Such a young man possessing such incredible talent, he replied. Yes, we've encountered a fateful opportunity, one brought to us by this young hero. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 added, his knowledge of poisons is truly extraordinary. Not only did he slay the Jiajun Xiang, but he also met a legendary divine bird. At this revelation, Funan and Ngani both showed their utter astonishment. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 continued, I heard the young hero even hatch the azure striped centipede egg himself. Huan chuckled. I can't believe I overlooked such a treasure. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 nodded. Indeed, father. Then he called out Ngani. She started, caught off guard. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked, I wish to take the young hero as my son-in-law. What are your thoughts? Ngani questioned. You mean, you want him as your son? She exclaimed. If he were to become my husband, then. But she suddenly fell silent. Her gaze lowered as she awaited an answer. She thought to herself, now that I've overcome the 100 poisons and entered the heavenly poison realm, I must prove I can be of greater use to the clan. Finally, she spoke up. As a member of the 𝐒𝐒𝐒 family, I understand the intention behind your words. Ngani slammed her hand on the table, her voice loud but her eyes welling with tears. She demanded, but is that young hero truly worthy of me? I must verify that for myself. With that, she ran out of the room, leaving everyone behind in a state of concern. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stood up, a sense of foreboding washing over him. Be careful, young hero. Watching his daughter's departing figure, he murmured, the spider lily may be beautiful, but it bears sharp thorns. Now, I can finally aim for the heavenly poison body. If I stop here, I will never gain the recognition of the clan elders. I will verify everything one last time, ... and carefully assess his character. Meanwhile, after finishing his bath, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sat outside, enjoying the breeze and lost in thought. What's going on? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sighed with a gloomy expression. I think I might have left a terrible impression on the young lady from the great clan. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 rubbed the centipede mark on his chest and wondered, Father, what am I going to do now? Suddenly, from behind him, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 called out, Young hero! The sound startled him, making him jump. Having run all the way, she was breathing heavily. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 was puzzled. Oh, Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒, she replied, my apologies for disturbing you. I was in a bit of a hurry. Seeing 𝐒𝐒𝐒's bewildered expression, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked, May I borrow your hand for a moment? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 immediately extended his hand and said, Yes. Of course, my lady, but then he hesitated. His face turned red as he stammered. About this, I'm not quite sure what you need, my lady, but perhaps it would be better to wait until we are more familiar with each other, don't you think? He continued awkwardly, that kind of thing. ... requires a deep and intimate understanding. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 was confused. What do you mean? Upon hearing that, her own face flushed red and she retorted loudly. No, it's not like that at all. What are you even saying? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sighed and muttered to himself. I guess it wasn't that. The romantic glow of the evening sunset did little to ease the tense atmosphere between them. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sighed and said, It's not what you think. I just wanted to check your pulse. Perhaps because I asked for your hand so suddenly, you misunderstood. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 gave a forced laugh. Oh, so that's what it was. I'm sorry for my misunderstanding. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sat down and said, First of all, I want to apologize for my abrupt appearance, and for my improper behavior. She looked at 𝐒𝐒𝐒, noticing he was still very young, barely a man, yet he displayed such mature thinking. Because of this, she decided to explain everything clearly, so they could understand each other, without any further complications. I will explain the current situation. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stammered. Okay? After listening to 𝐒𝐒𝐒's explanation for a while, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 felt like he was living through a familiar historical drama. As the sole heir of her family's main branch, she was constantly fighting against the treacherous schemes of the side branches. To ensure the family's survival, the elders had decided to recruit an outstanding son. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 nodded, murmuring, They've even considered my position in the clan if I join. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 continued, Therefore, I must apologize in advance. But there is something I need to confirm with you. She scratched her head, adding, Even if things don't go the way I hope, I have no intention of treating you poorly. You are my benefactor, so we will treat you as an honored guest. She then added, Or, how about we become sworn siblings? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 was surprised by the offer. He held out his hand with a smile and said, I understand what you mean. Please, feel free to confirm whatever you need to. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 paused for a moment before taking 𝐒𝐿ong's pulse. All right, let's begin. A strange aura began to radiate from her, startling 𝐒𝐒𝐒. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 explained, The martial arts of the 𝐒𝐒𝐒 family cannot be comprehended by just anyone. Only a select few can handle poisons and master our clan's ultimate techniques. She continued, On the other hand, there are those who are completely unable to do so. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 explained their system, based on a hierarchy of poisons. Heavenly, 100, 10, and 5 poisons. The 𝐒𝐒𝐒 family's poison techniques require the practitioner to slowly adapt to various toxins, as their internal energy grows. Only by embracing them all can one achieve true mastery. After checking his pulse, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 said, Fortunately, your body is capable of learning our poison arts. But then she turned to him and added, However, it's merely a 10 poison body. This means your constitution can only withstand 10 types of venom. For an outsider to the Tang Clan, possessing a 10 poison body is already impressive. But 𝐒𝐒𝐒 was stunned into silence by this revelation. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 rose to her feet and continued, In terms of overall power, you would only be considered a first-rate warrior. That is the highest level an ordinary person without innate talent could ever hope to achieve. She bowed slightly and said, Forgive me, I must take my leave. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stood and replied, Of course, take care. But as he watched her go, a heavy thought weighed on him. Am I truly just a 10 poison body? He suddenly blurted out, Does this mean I'll never be able to capture the 𝐒𝐒𝐒? This was indeed a grave problem. Meanwhile, after stepping out of her bath, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 wrapped a simple cloth around herself and let out a long sigh. She glanced down at her skin, wondering why her body had been emitting such a peculiar fragrance. Ever since she absorbed the inner core of the 𝐿, I've been bathing several times a day. After dressing, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 mused, Could this be a punishment for speaking so disrespectfully to my benefactor? The scene shifts to 𝐒𝐿ong's bedroom, where he is lost in a deep slumber, seemingly drifting through a dream. Suddenly, he found himself in a grove of cherry blossom trees. From a distance, he heard a voice crying, I am eternally grateful for your kindness. Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒, thank you. Thank you, my benefactor. 𝐒𝐿ong mumbled to himself, Am I dreaming? A young woman spoke up, No. It may feel like a dream, but I assure you, this is very real. The 𝐿 knelt on the ground, explaining, I am merely borrowing the form of this young lady, the one who took my inner core, so as not to frighten you. I am the mother of these children. The Thanban, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 Tu-Long, was baffled. The Thanban, 𝐒𝐒𝐒. He looked down to see adorable children at his feet. Startled, Tu-Long exclaimed, "You all scared me. When did you get here?" Looking at them, he asked, "So, you're all her children? Are all of you girls?" He knelt on one knee and asked, "But how did you enter my dream?" The spirit hesitated. Then, filled with rage, the Thanban 𝐒𝐒𝐒 declared, "I was brutally murdered, forced to leave my children behind. My thirst for vengeance cried out to the heavens, allowing my soul to linger within the inner core." Her voice dripped with fury as she said, "When I placed a curse upon the young woman who absorbed my inner core, an opportunity for revenge finally arose, allowing me to appear in your dream." The Thanban 𝐒𝐒𝐒's tones softened with gratitude. "It is thanks to you that I could bring my children here, my benefactor." After hearing her tragic story, Tu-Long finally replied, "I understand now." He thought with a pang of guilt. In the end, I was the one who revealed her location to her enemies. With a troubled expression, Tu-Long admitted, "I never intended for that to happen, but regardless, I am connected to the death of the Thanban 𝐒𝐒𝐒." Seeing the remorse in his eyes, the Thanban 𝐒𝐒𝐒 spoke up, "Benefactor, if it is not too much trouble, could you possibly grant me one final wish?" Holding a sleeping child, Tu-Long replied resolutely, "Of course, I will grant whatever wish you have." She stroked her child's head gently and said, "Could you watch over my children until they come of age?" He asked, perplexed, "But aren't they sick? Shouldn't they be able to live on their own after molting twice from their mother's body?" The Thanban 𝐒𝐒𝐒 explained, "That is true for lesser creatures, but our kind is different." She caressed her children and revealed, "Before the young of my clan molt twice, they are heavily dependent on the flow of energy from their mother's inner core. Afterward, they will grow by absorbing the life force of other living things." Tu-Long wondered, "But Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒 has already absorbed the core. Does that mean they need to stay close to her?" The spirit's tone became serious. "You must understand our situation, benefactor. Do you recall me mentioning that I cursed that young woman?" A sense of unease crept over him as he replied, "Yes," she continued, "because of my inner core, that girl's body now exudes a putrid stench." Tu-Long was aghast. "A putrid stench." With a wicked expression, the Thanban 𝐒𝐒𝐒 said, "I will ensure that no man can ever get near her, making it impossible for her to bear children." Horrified, he repeated, "Heavens," she continued, "if you want to break this curse, you must let my children absorb the energy from the core. Perhaps you could use this chance to win her heart." Tu-Long stroked his chin, in thought for a moment before smiling. "I don't think that would be right. I refuse to take advantage of Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒's difficult situation." The Thanban 𝐒𝐒𝐒 acknowledged him as a truly honorable man. She asked earnestly, "But in that case, how do you plan to overcome this trial? It appears that young woman is seeking a man of formidable power." She also noted, "And I can no longer give you the inner core of the 𝐒𝐒𝐒. It has already been fully absorbed into her body." Tu-Long muttered, "Huh," he said cheerfully, "I have an idea. Can you place your trust in me?" The spirit wondered, "What are you talking about?" Tu-Long gently patted the child's head and assured her, "Just leave this matter to me. I'm sure it will be a success." The next day, after hearing Tu-Long's story, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked in astonishment, "So, the fragrance coming from my body is caused by the Thanban 𝐒𝐒𝐒's inner core?" 𝐒𝐒𝐿 appeared, carrying her infant, as he stated, "It is indeed true. And if you let these centipedes stay near you for a few days, they'll absorb the energy from your inner core, and the scent will vanish on its own." She added shyly, "I feel a bit awkward asking you this." But 𝐒𝐒𝐿 questioned him, "You're telling me this without asking for anything in return? Shouldn't you request some kind of compensation from me?" Tu-Long smiled gently. I couldn't possibly take advantage of your predicament. I wouldn't want to be so shameless." His response surprised her, and she lowered her head, falling silent for a moment. At last, she made her decision. "Very well. In that case, I can't keep accepting your kindness without reciprocating." 𝐒𝐒𝐿 then said with conviction, "I will seriously consider my father's words. Brother Tu-Long, I'm realizing some things are far more important than talent or martial skill." Embarrassed, Tu-Long scratched his head and said, "Well, about that, I was actually thinking about this myself." She asked, "Thinking about what?" He gave an awkward laugh. "You said I possess the 10 poisons body and can absorb 10 types of poisons, right?" 𝐒𝐒𝐿 sighed in confirmation. "That is correct." Tu-Long glanced at the small creatures and said, "So, if I can only absorb 10 poisons, could I take in the toxins of the 10 great poison masters of the Central Plains?" 𝐒𝐒𝐿's curiosity was piqued. "The 10 poisons from the 10 great poison masters." A blush crept onto her cheeks as she mumbled, "So, he wants to become the strongest person in the world. That's impossible." For Duong 𝐒𝐒𝐿, one of the 3 renowned flowers of Lam V, this was the first time a man had ever expressed such a bold ambition to her. The sky was overcast, yet rays of sunlight managed to pierce the heavy clouds, illuminating the gazebo outside. The two of them were sitting on the steps, deep in conversation. What was that? Hoan looked bewildered. She stared at Tu-Long and asked, "Young master, do you even realize what you're saying?" He fell silent under Hoan's gaze for a moment, then simply scratched his head with a clueless laugh and replied, "I have no idea." Her patience with this young man was wearing thin. Turning to face him properly, Hoan crossed her arms and stated gravely, That path is filled with immense hardship and countless trials. It could take 10 years, 20 years, or perhaps even an entire lifetime to pursue. Tu-Long, sitting beside her with a look of pure innocence, hesitated before asking, Is it really that serious? Covering her face with both hands, she let out a soft, exasperated sigh. All right, young Master Tu-Long, I've heard you are only in 3 years. When you come of age, it will be time for our wedding ceremony. With a completely naive expression, Tu-Long listened as Hoan spoke of their future, her voice carrying the shy tone of a young maiden. Within the next 3 years, if you can successfully subdue one of the 10 great poisonous creatures, you might earn everyone's complete trust. If everything goes smoothly, your chances of success will be quite high. Blushing, she fidgeted with her fingers and added, As for the wedding, that is my condition. Suddenly, Hoan leaped to her feet and shouted, In any case, I will be supporting you. Her sudden outburst made Tu-Long flinch away in surprise. Without looking back, she rushed off, leaving only a single sentence behind. All right, I'm leaving now. Tu-Long remained frozen on the spot, only able to utter a single, bewildered, huh. He quickly called out to her retreating figure. Miss Hoan, startled, she turned back to ask, Is there something else you needed to say, young master? Tu-Long offered a pure, innocent smile and patted the spot next to him, his whole body seeming to glow with a holy light as he said, It's about the required treatment. We just need 1 more hour. Please, Milady, try to stay just a little longer before you go. His words made Hoan freeze on the spot, as if her composure was cracking into a million pieces. She let out a helpless scream at his utter cluelessness. Her body went rigid, her fists clenched tight. She stomped back to her original spot, her face flushed crimson with shame. Meanwhile, Tu-Long completely misunderstood her reaction, thinking she was afraid of the small creatures on his body. He quickly reassured her, Don't worry, they absolutely won't bite you. After speaking, he turned to the creatures on his hand and cooed, All right now, my little darlings. They immediately perked up in response. Tu-Ho, in complete shock, Tu-Long began to interpret their chirps. Not listening to your father, you want to go talk to your mother instead? There was such joy and delight in their sounds. He repeated the important keywords. Father, mother. Upon hearing this, Tu-Long's face filled with panic. A frantic denial burst from his lips. No, it's not like that. Meanwhile, in the study, 3 parents sat across from one another. They wore serious expressions as they talked. It seems the young master's talent alone has not been enough to capture our daughter's heart. Duong Quan, asked Madame Duong in a grave tone. Did you see them this morning? It looks like something is blossoming between them. Hearing this, the old patriarch fell into deep thought. He stroked his silver beard and murmured softly, I see. Duong's son then remained silent for a long time. Duong Quan cleared his throat before continuing. Forcing the wedding would be improper. It's much better to let their feelings develop naturally. An idea suddenly sparked for Madame Duong. She turned her gaze toward her husband. Why not put Hoan in charge of his martial arts training? Let her personally instruct the young master. If they meet often enough, feelings are bound to grow. Duong Quan replied. That's not a bad idea at all. Hearing this, the head of the Duong family nodded in agreement. In that case, I will have Master Yi arrange it. Perhaps things will progress much more smoothly then. Should we grant this favor? This could be our chance to bring them closer, Duong Sun suggested, his voice laced with concern. But Hoan has never shown any interest in the matter. I fear you're expecting far too much. Father, he crossed his arms and let out a cold snort. Let's just see what happens, the old man said with dismissive eyes, finally sighing in agreement. So be it. At that moment, a familiar figure appeared at the door. Father, your humble daughter, Hoan, has come to pay her respects. Her voice from outside the room made the 3 men jump. Hoan, they murmured. Why would she be here? At this hour, Duong Sun regained his composure and called out, You may enter. Without a moment's hesitation, she pushed the door open. Seeing the 3 solemn patriarchs, she felt a wave of unease. Huan swallowed nervously, stammering slightly. Everyone is gathered here. Her words only made the 3 men stare at her more intently. Completely baffled, she stood up straight, clasping her hands respectfully. I've come because I have something important to report. Something to report? Duong Sun echoed in surprise. Just thinking about her next words brought a deep blush to her cheeks. Her throat felt tight as she stammered. I will do as you have instructed, father. She clenched her hands together, gathering her courage to say it all at once. Duong Sun could only utter a single sound, his face a mask of shock. He couldn't quite process what was happening. After a long pause, Duong Sun hesitantly asked, What I instructed? What do you mean by that? Meanwhile, Madame Duong beamed with joy, pulling her daughter closer. She urged Hoan to speak, but her daughter was too flustered to form a sentence. Growing impatient, her mother chimed in. Could it be that young Master Tu-Long has finally caught your eye? She stiffened instantly, her face flushing from pale to crimson and back again. The blush would recede for a moment, only to flare up once more. Much to the delight of her parents, well, this is quite a sudden turnaround. You were so clear before that, you weren't interested. Her father's frankness left Hoan completely flustered. She wanted nothing more than to hide her face. Their teasing remarks livened up the room, as cheerful laughter shattered the earlier silence. Hoan could only bow her head in front of her parents, her cheeks burning. Things were clearly heading in a direction she hadn't anticipated, and her father's words left her at a loss, unsure of how to respond. She nervously tapped her index fingers together, a clear sign of her inner turmoil. After a long moment, she finally dared to speak. Young Master Tulong. He made a vow. For me, he swore he would become the greatest warrior in the world. Her declaration made both parents sit up in excitement. What was that? The greatest in the world. Her father stroked his short beard. His interest piqued. Tell us everything, from the beginning. At her father's request, Hoan dutifully explained everything that had happened. What I mean is, even though my own innate talents are nothing special, for my sake, the young masters swore an oath to master all 10 great poisons. That was his promise to me. The head of the Duong family let out a laugh at her strange yet proud declaration. Did you say? 10 great poisons. That boy truly doesn't know his own limits. He's reaching for the heavens, her mother added with a playful jab. To think such a person exists in this world? Her parents' teasing made Hoan's face burn bright red. However, she quickly composed herself and explained. While it's true that I've accepted him in my heart, the marriage can only be approved after young Master Tulong has matured and can successfully master at least one of the 10 great poisons. Do you all understand my intentions? She looked between the three of them, searching their faces. All three parents seemed delighted by the proposition. Just 1 or 2 poisons won't be enough, will it? For my daughter, that's the least he can do, Madame Duong added enthusiastically. But you know how dense men can be, don't you? Hearing her mother's words, Hoan suddenly understood. So, should I perhaps explain it to him again? She lovingly stroked her young daughter's head and advised her gently. Doesn't the young master realize he already has our approval? Why wouldn't he put in a little more effort for my daughter? Duong Quan added cheerfully. In that case, let's start treating him as our son. Perhaps we should pretend we know nothing of this. If he truly strives for it, he'll become part of our family soon enough. And with that, they all shared a look of satisfaction. In another place entirely, Tulong felt his hand being squeezed tightly. That was truly impressive. Benefactor, an excited voice exclaimed. You've completely won her heart, haven't you? Tialong grew shy at the compliment, scratching his head with an awkward laugh. Well, it was just a bit of courage and perseverance. That's all. He was speaking to a smiling face, identical to Hoan's, distinguished only by a green, diamond-shaped gem on its forehead. After a brief silence, it spoke. Benefactor, I believe today will be our last time together. Now that my grudge has been resolved, my spirit will soon be able to pass on. Tialong looked at the 3 small, dancing children at his side and nodded. Yes, I understand. Its hair fluttered in the wind as it stood still. Is there anything else I can do for you? We would gladly do anything in our power to repay you. Tulong placed a hand on his chin, feigning deep thought. In that case, if you don't mind, could you let me take a little peek? He then snapped his fingers decisively. The being blushed at Tulong's request, clutching its ropes tightly. I see the benefactor as a true man. After all, it thought to itself. Before hesitantly agreeing out loud, Without hesitation, it began to pull down its robe, thinking, it seems the benefactor is weak to a pretty face. Seeing this, Tulong's expression darkened as he moved to stop it. Wait a minute, he shouted in a panic. Do you really have to take that off? Now it was the spirit's turn to be confused, wondering what was happening. Why have the children covered their eyes? Seeing them, the spirit said, I won't take it off then, if that makes you more comfortable. No, that's not what I meant at all. Tulong frantically denied. I'm not like that. I only wanted to see the true form of the Thanban Ngo King. He hurried to explain, terrified of being misunderstood any further. The atmosphere instantly became thick with an awkward silence. The children kept their eyes tightly covered. The spirit slowly lowered its hands, its face flushed with embarrassment. I'm so sorry. I completely misunderstood you. You, You only wanted to see my true form? Tulong quickly waved his hands, trying to smooth over the awkwardness and prevent any further confusion. It asked with clear suspicion in its voice. Finally, understanding what Tulong meant, it hesitated. If that's what you mean? A second later, the scene suddenly transformed. His excited scream echoed all around. Its body underwent a spectacular change. Shifting from a beautiful girl, it became a monstrous, giant centipede. It even spoke in a flirtatious tone. How about this? Is this acceptable? Benefactor. Tulong let out a tired, heavy breath. His eyes shone with pure excitement. It's real. It's unbelievably huge. Can I please touch it, just a little? He asked, rubbing his hands together, leaving Enkang speechless. You're already touching me. Having gotten his wish, Tulong's demands grew bolder. Can I keep a small piece? Whoa, how can the joints support something this massive? And when it walks, do the front legs really glow like that? Hearing this, Enkang wiggled its short front legs. It let out a bashful sound, questioning, my front legs. Seeing the adorable gesture, he asked excitedly, can I touch the legs? And with that question, Enkang was speechless for a second time. You're already touching them. Now in his element, Tialong became increasingly ecstatic. He fired off questions relentlessly. How potent is its venom? And what about its eyes? Does it see with them? Or does it still use its antennae to sense things? The 3 children were still covering their eyes, but not out of shyness. It was because they couldn't bear to watch this scene. It could only give a vague answer, of course. Then, it let out a terrified shriek. Staring intently at the sharp claw, he clenched his fists and probed. Then just let me touch the venomous fang once. This question made Enkang freeze. It warned him, that might be a little dangerous. Hearing that, Tu-Long launched a cute vocal assault, but you promised you'd grant any request. Tu-Long's eyes were still sparkling with anticipation. Does this kid truly know? No fear? The giant centipede twitched its antennae, thinking for a long moment. Finally, it relented to the young boy. All right then, but be careful with this deadly poison. Tu-Long was thrilled to get a closer look. The other children could only watch from a distance, launching his cute assault. You said you'd grant any request. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 shook his head, shyly. Benefactor, what are you talking about? Fan Ban-ing wondered to himself. Are my daughters really going to be okay? As his hand reached out, his face revealed a hungry craving. Oh, this kitten shell is so dazzling. He concluded that this entire situation was incredibly strange. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 placed his hands together near his chin, his expression softening considerably. He spoke, "That's right, young hero. No, Tu-Long. I've heard the story from 𝐒𝐒𝐒-𝐑𝐚𝐧𝐤. From now on, you are my son." Hearing the deep, powerful voice, he looked over at 𝐒𝐒𝐒-𝐑𝐚𝐧𝐤 in shock. She, too, had heard her father's words. Her delicate face broke into a gentle smile. Tu-Long knew she wouldn't help him, and felt flustered as he tried to explain. But what about the 3-year trial? Before he could finish his sentence, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 cut him off, giving him no chance to refuse. The wedding will be held when you come of age. That's a given. Hearing this, Tu-Long waved his hands helplessly. No, that's not what I meant. Madame 𝐒𝐒𝐒, sitting beside them, cupped her aged but well cared for face with one hand. She chimed in with a bright smile. Oh my Tu-Long, welcome once again. I am your mother. Even the temp's family head joined the excitement. His hair was white, but his eyes were bright as he gazed at the boy with a joyful smile. Now that 𝐒𝐒𝐒 has found her destined one, our temp's family will only see good fortune from this day forward. Seeing everyone in her family so supportive of their marriage, Tu-Long was at a complete loss for words. He glanced over at 𝐒𝐒𝐒 and softly called her name, 𝐒𝐒𝐒. She didn't reply, but a smile bloomed on her small face. He thought he had seen it wrong, but a closer look revealed her expression had returned to its usual cold indifference. This sent a wave of unease through his heart. Surprised, he wondered, what is going on? She clearly set conditions for the marriage, so why is she acting like it's already a done deal? Though he didn't understand the current situation, he quietly decided to just go along with her wishes for now. With that thought, Tu-Long composed himself, scratching his head with a sheepish laugh. Yes, I'll be in your care. He expected the atmosphere to become more awkward after he said that, or at least, for him to be the only one feeling shy. But the temp's family master and his son paid him no mind. The 2 elder men of the family just beamed at each other as they discussed their plans. Let's get right to it. Yes, we must begin. The scene caused a giant question mark to appear in Tu-Long's mind. After a moment of discussion with his father, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 looked at Tu-Long and said, "Before you learn the temp's family's poison arts, there is something I want to show you." Tu-Long turned in surprise and asked, "Yes, what is it?" Seeing his cute expression, the 2 older men chuckled and looked at each other. 𝐒𝐒𝐒, as the family head, spoke with a serious gaze. The Hall of 10,000 Venoms. I guarantee you, we'll love this place. The 4 members of the Temp's clan stood in a line, making way for Tu-Long to follow behind the old master. As he curiously observed the scenery in the rear courtyard, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 spoke up. We have been waiting for this moment. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 cheerfully told Tu-Long, the moment you officially enter the Hall of 10,000 Venoms as a member of the Temp's clan, this is our tradition. The whole family comes here together. Tu-Long replied excitedly. I'm looking forward to it too, grandfather. Suddenly, his breathing grew heavy and his face flushed with excitement. As he prepared to enter the hall and witness the wonders that awaited him, he thought to himself, the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. It must be a treasure trove of countless deadly concoctions. How fascinating. Before he could dwell on it, Tu-Long's gaze shifted to 𝐒𝐒𝐒, and he could hardly believe his eyes. He saw her, a radiant beauty standing out in the morning sun. Her captivating beauty and perfect curves left him silently in awe. My goodness. His face flushed uncontrollably as he thought to himself that a beauty's side profile is even more stunning than a painting. Unbeknownst to him, 𝐒𝐒𝐒's parents had been observing his every reaction. Instead of being stern, they chuckled, seeing their future son-in-law utterly captivated by their daughter. Duongsun suddenly broke the silence, teasing him. Young man, if you keep staring like that, my daughter will become shy. You're part of the family now, so why are you still standing there in a daze? It seems our son-in-law is already smitten with 𝐒𝐒𝐒. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 then reminded him, Tu-Long, you should watch where you're going. All he could do was reply with flustered embarrassment. A short while later, they arrived at a room built into a mountain, guarded by 3 muscular-looking men. As they got closer, he recognized a truck and their rippling muscles on full display as they stood guard with extremely solemn expressions. Suddenly, a warrior approached, clasped his hands, and said, You have arrived, honored supreme head of the family. Duongsun immediately replied to the warrior, I want to show my grandson-in-law the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. Open the gate. The 3 guards quickly acknowledged the command. Tu-Long observed his surroundings with surprise. The security here was far stricter than anything from the medieval era. After receiving the order, the only robed man there shouted, Open the gate. 2 guards immediately used all their muscular strength to push open the massive door, requiring an immense amount of effort to even budge it. A guard asked, Why are we opening the gates so early today? Long watched in amazement. Watching the two muscular guards straining, he couldn't help but wonder, is opening a door really supposed to be this much of an ordeal? Once the massive doors were fully open, a 𝐒𝐒𝐒 and a DDU were panting for air, completely drenched in sweat. When everything was ready, the lead guard turned and gestured. Please, enter. Duong's son quickly nodded to Long. Let's go inside. As they stepped in, he explained, this is an iron gate forged from the NGO Kwang steel of Namon. Just being able to open it is a great honor. Long replied in surprise. Is that so? Once everyone was inside, Duong's son proudly announced, we have arrived. Long's eyes widened as he looked around in absolute astonishment. Duong's son continued. This is the treasure vault containing every kind of poison of the Duong family. Duong's son reiterated. This is the Vandok, Duong of the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. Be careful not to touch anything. Long asked with curiosity. So this is the Vandok. Are the poisons stored in these jars and pouches? Duong's son quickly replied. That's right. There are many different types of poisons here, such as Ma, Taedok, and Tamindok. As he spoke, Duong's son led Long towards Hoan and said, Hoan, why don't you explain things to Long? I'm sure our grandson-in-law would prefer that. Madame Duong, standing beside them, agreed. Indeed. Hoan didn't object, blushing slightly as she replied, yes, father. With that, she pulled Long along for a tour of the Vandok Duong, saying, come here, I will show you the most potent poisons of the Duong sect, starting with Hong Kim. The more she spoke, the more bashful she became. This is Tan Kong Dok, a poison that all martial artists must be extremely wary of. If you inhale it, you won't be able to use your internal energy, so be careful. This one is Don Trong Dok, Diat Hun Dok, Ho Hayat Dok, and that Bo Don Hun. Seeing their daughter point out the countless powerful poisons of the Duong family, Hoan's parents beamed with pride. They are both so adorable. Meanwhile, Hoan's expression turned serious as she said, these are all powerful poisons, but the most potent poison of the Duong sect is something else entirely. She then handed Long a small bean and said, take this, Long. Looking at the tiny bean in his hand, Long was still confused and asked, this is it. Hoan began to explain, excluding the poisons from the 10 great toxic creatures. This is currently our most powerful poison, she added. This is the herb that symbolizes the Duong sect, the castor bean. At first, Long was puzzled, wondering, a castor bean? In truth, this was ricin, an extremely potent toxin. Just 2 milligrams are enough to kill a grown adult. Still in shock, he exclaimed, it's hundreds of thousands of times more powerful than cyanide. Hoan smiled and told him, this poison comes closest to the Duong sect's ultimate goal, colorless, tasteless, and formless. Therefore, this poison is known as Kimdok, the most precious of all poisons. She continued to explain, and killing someone with this poison is called Kimse. After hearing her explanation, Long suddenly felt an intense, fiery aura emanating from Hoan. At the same time, he heard her instruct him, remember this well? The deadliest poison isn't necessarily the most painful or horrifying one, but the one that kills silently, and certainly, the poison arts of the Sichuan Duan clan strive for that very goal. Silent and certain, an image of the people in this clan flashed through Long's mind, making him realize the true nature of these assassins. A moment later, a voice cut through their conversation. That is enough. Duong Quan spoke from a distance. Next, let's go see the poisonous creatures Long has been waiting for. Long's face immediately lit up with excitement. So you're talking about the venomous creatures? The old master encouraged him, saying, if you like them, you can manage them. The family will give you its full support. Overcome with excitement, Long stammered, really? You would actually support my hobby? Quan quickly gathered everyone. In that case, let's head out right now. But before he could finish, an urgent message arrived, forcing them to a halt. Family head, there is an urgent matter to report. CSUB cried out, rushing toward SN, who asked, CSUB, what's wrong? After catching his breath, he announced, you are needed at the Black Tortoise Pavilion, immediately. SN asked, with curiosity, the Black Tortoise Pavilion, why there? CSUB quickly explained, the family elders are waiting. Upon hearing this, Quan's face darkened with anger. What? Those old geezers. Again. Long suddenly realized, were these the same elders she had mentioned? CSUB quickly added, there are 2 issues. First, the medicine we sent to the Lord of Sichuan has had no effect. He sent a letter of complaint. Second, he trailed off, glancing uncomfortably at Long. Long sighed and spoke up bluntly. It's about the Hall of 10,000 Quan wasn't surprised, muttering, news certainly travels fast. With that, he set off with the others, not forgetting to call out, let's go, grandson, you come with me, Finally, they arrived at the Black Tortoise Pavilion, where a large group of elders was already buzzing with discussion. The moment they entered, one of the elders shouted Sun's name. Before any greetings could be exchanged, the accusations began. How dare you make such a critical decision on your own? How could you betroth our precious Hoan Gani to some nameless orphan of unknown origin? SN shot back furiously. Nameless, of unknown origin. He erupted with rage, declaring, ... as he moved to protect Long. Are you insulting my son? The crowd quickly countered. No, that's not it, but it's the truth. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stepped forward. I was the one who made the decision. Does anyone have a problem with that? The lead elder stammered. Grand Patriarch. Hearing their malicious attacks, 𝐒𝐒𝐒's expression darkened. Grand Patriarch, please advise the family head, he pleaded. We had just come to an agreement. Noticing the smile disappear from 𝐒𝐒𝐒's face, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 quietly apologized for the trouble. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sighed, oh dear, thinking to himself, now I've made her worry again. While the elders were still arguing, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 suddenly spoke up. Forgive me for interrupting the elders' conversation, he stated with a grave tone. This entire situation seems to stem from my own incompetence. Then, patting his own shoulder, he declared loudly, if I can prove my capabilities, will the elders finally accept me? A distant elder looked astonished. Sputtering, with unshakable confidence, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 announced. For instance, by solving the difficult problem faced by the Lord of Beside him, 𝐒𝐒 and Madame 𝐒𝐒𝐒 grew anxious, chiding him in a hushed panic. 𝐒𝐒𝐒, what are you planning to do? He thought to himself. I don't care about saving face, but if anyone dares disrupt my peaceful life with my pets, I won't forgive them. A stir went through the grand courtyard as everyone reacted to 𝐒𝐒𝐒 daring to challenge his seniors. How dare you? A silver-haired elder boomed. The elders are speaking. Does a brat like you have the right to interrupt? Many others quickly joined in, adding their own criticisms. That's right. Besides, do you even know what the Lord of Sichuan's letter says to make such a bold claim? As 𝐒𝐒𝐒 and Madame 𝐒𝐒𝐒 watched the conflict escalate, Madame 𝐒𝐒𝐒 remarked, family head, he has no background, yet he dares to meddle in our affairs. This is precisely why we recommended a young man from a prestigious family to be our son. Hearing these words, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 felt a wave of exhaustion, thinking, I can't listen to these old men anymore. This is getting ridiculous. He recalled his live streams, with their positive feedback from over 1 million followers and an average of 3,000 live viewers. Filled with renewed confidence, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 addressed the elders. I hear you have yet to acknowledge me as In that case, I am still a guest here. As 𝐒𝐒𝐒 continued to state his case, even 𝐒𝐒𝐒 looked on with a hint of admiration. Furthermore, I not only aided 𝐒𝐒𝐒, the treasure of the 𝐒𝐒𝐒 family, but I also saved the family head's life by defeating the blood-handed Asura, 𝐒𝐤. He clasped his hands as a sign of respect and pressed on. Yet you elders dare to insult a benefactor and an honored guest to his face. Is this the famed etiquette and discipline of the 𝐒𝐒𝐒 family? In the world of streaming, it was nothing new for 𝐒𝐒𝐒 to face a barrage of attacks from multiple people at once. This had become a familiar part of his life. Armed with vast experience, he effortlessly diffused the situation in a heartbeat. The once furious elders suddenly changed their tune. One of them cleared his throat, rubbing his neck and stammering. Well, it's not exactly like that. Ahem. Perhaps we were a bit hasty and misspoke. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 tilted his head slightly, a scornful smile on his lips as he thought, completely useless. However, some skepticism still lingered. But defeating the blood-hand Asura, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 seemed utterly impossible. That's when Duong's son, a supporter of 𝐒𝐒𝐒, arrived with evidence for him. I'm not lying. Take a look at this. The sight left the gentleman beside him, speechless, unable to form a word. As the book was opened, a shockwave went through the crowd as they recognized the contents of the Blood-Hand Poison Claw manual, written in blood, the true mark of the blood cult. Duong's son smiled proudly at his son. 𝐒𝐒, show us the NGO Kang. The young man replied obediently. Yes, father-in-law. This only deepened the curiosity of the onlookers. The NGO, as he summoned his treasures, a blinding light flared from his hand, capturing everyone's attention. Come out, my darlings. Adorable little creatures emerged from his robes, chirping to announce their presence. The people around them were completely stunned, unable to believe their own eyes. What? Golden centipedes. Duong's son quickly explained. They are the children of the Thanban NGO, which my son-in-law is raising. Now, would you believe me if I said they killed Tak Van too? The elders couldn't help but reel back from this shocking information. The Thanban NGO Kang. Can this young man truly command them? Duong's son stood firm. If I can't acknowledge this son-in-law, what else should I call him? 𝐒𝐒𝐒, standing beside him, couldn't hide a smug grin as he spoke to his creatures. Now my dears, remember not to bite anyone. The elders were too astonished to say anything more. Finally, they changed their tune. We never said we wouldn't acknowledge him, it's just that certain procedures must be followed. The family head was angry because you ignored them. Duong's son let out a sigh. Fine, I'll let the matter of my son-in-law go, for now. But why are you opposing the Van 𝐸𝐸𝐸 matter? The elders began to argue again. He is not yet an official member of the family. How can we entrust a Van 𝐸𝐸𝐸 to a boy who isn't even of age? Hearing this, the old man also began to hesitate. That's right, we can't. Entrusting the Van 𝐸𝐸𝐸𝐸 is such a critical matter. Alright, Duongquan quickly proposed a solution. Then, it's simple. Can you prove your capabilities? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 replied. Of course I can, he declared with confidence. To prove my worth to the Duong family, I will resolve this using the Duong family's way, and that is by using poison. Upon hearing this, the crowd recoiled in fear. What? They began to whisper amongst themselves. Are you planning to poison the city, Lord of We are talking about delivering medicine, not committing murder. Even Duongquan and Duong's son stared at him with baffled eyes as he asked innocently, what do you think, family head? Internally, Duongquan thought, he's truly too soft. No, our Duong family must use poison. The next day arrived, and Tu Long was training with Duong Quan. The old master told him, a challenge is a challenge. But starting today, you will begin learning the Duong family's 5 poisons origin technique. Hearing this, the boy cheered with excitement. But when he thought about the training, he wondered, is it still physical training? The old man replied, your body will adapt to the martial art as you practice it. Duong Quan continued to lecture. The Duong clan values practice, so you will learn things that can be immediately applied in real combat. He then presented a formidable set of family weapons. He introduced them one by one. These are hidden weapons. Needles, coins, darts, knives, and even swords and daggers. Although there are many other types of hidden weapons, these 5 are the main ones. The master then asked him, do you know which is the easiest to use? The boy answered hesitantly, probably daggers or throw-in knives. Duong Quan acknowledged his answer. Correct. So then, which type is the most difficult to use? Tu Long looked at a small pouch and answered, it must be the powder, because you have to sprinkle it. The old master shook his head. This time, you are incorrect. Wrong. Now, the most difficult to use is the needle, the boy exclaimed. The needle? Is it because it's so small and thin, making it hard to throw? The master explained, it's because you have to remember precisely the location where you threw it. It would be better if I demonstrate it while explaining. Tu Long was amazed when Duong Quan took out a calligraphy brush. The old master skillfully dismantled the brush piece by piece. In just a blink, the brush was gone, its parts scattering and floating in the air. Tu Long watched the spectacle with wonder. As light and white as a feather, he never thought that something so soft could transform into a hail of sharp projectiles. They rained down toward the ground. Duong Quan stood calmly with his arms crossed, while Tu Long jumped back, pulling up his legs in fear. Witnessing this phenomenon, he thought in terror, these bristles are piercing my skin, just like needles. His eyes widened. He watched as the bristles performed a deadly ballet, a dance of sharp points. Duong Quan explained, the Duong clan has a hidden weapon technique called the Rain of 1,000 Blossoms. It is a secret art of the Duong clan, blanketing the entire surrounding area with hundreds, even thousands, of needles. At this point, the boy was filled with dread. Do you mean I have to fight an enemy while surrounded by needles like this? Besides, he had another question. If needles are everywhere, then is there any place left to even step? The old man nodded. Precisely. That is why you must remember their positions, so you do not harm yourself. Tu Long thought. Oh heavens. He then asked again, so even the positions of the needles that are deflected by the opponent or fall down, I have to remember all of them. The old man nodded. Of course, the master added, if you're a user of the 5 poisons, you must at least remember about 100 positions. When she was a prodigy, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 could already remember 1,000 positions. Tu Long could only click his tongue in amazement. As the scene shifted to the peaceful sky over the mountain peak, the air was fresh and filled with energy. Yet Tu Long was completely exhausted, lying face down on the floor. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 approached to check on him. Tu Long, are you all right like this? He greeted her back. Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒. He asked what she was doing, and she quickly replied, I heard you were going to catch a hung fong, so I came prepared. Before she could say, if you don't need it, he cut in. No, it's fine. I was going to wait, but with this, I can catch it myself. She was taken aback. Wait, you plan to wait for the hung fong? Tu Long replied, you'll understand when we get there. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 was still puzzled. Is that so? Tu Long then asked her, by the way, do you know where the hung fong nest is? She replied, I've already found one. It's nearby. We can head there now. She hesitated. But you have read the letter from the Lord of Sichuan, haven't you? He confirmed. Yes, of course. Hearing this, she asked again. Tu Long, you're still young, so I am a bit worried. Do you fully understand the letter's contents? He answered. Of course, my lady. This matter is vital for a man's yang energy. Hearing that, she shyly told him to stop. That's enough. That's enough. Then she added, you seem to understand the situation quite well. That's right. The great problem the Lord of Sichuan faces is impotence. She praised him. Tu Long, you are truly knowledgeable for your age. He stammered. It's because I live alone that I know. Suddenly, she began to run. Let's hurry and go. This left Tu Long rushing to follow, calling out, Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒. The two ventured deep into the forest, a place of lush greenery where wildflowers bloomed along the path. Tu Long got distracted by a small climbing animal, forcing 𝐒𝐒𝐒 to quickly grab his collar to stop him. They halted at a specific spot. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 announced, We've arrived. Tu Long simply nodded in reply. Looking at that cave, they must be in here. As she put on protective gear, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked Tu Long, but Tu Long, what's the point of finding a hive if there are no bees? He explained to Hez, although we're looking for hung fong, we aren't going to catch them. She exclaimed in surprise. The two searched intently among the rock crevices. He peered deep into the cave and told her, the poisonous insect we need often lives in small beehive. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 wondered, a poisonous insect inside a beehive. He confirmed, yes? Upon spotting something, Tu Long said joyfully, perfect. It looks like this hive has one. With a nimble movement, he used chopsticks to grab the tiny prey. He cheered, got you, you little thing, leaving 𝐒𝐒𝐒 wide-eyed with astonishment as she asked Tu Long, that insect, could it be? He finished her sentence. That's right, we came here not to catch hung fong, but to catch this insect. he said excitedly. This creature will solve the Lord of Sichuan's problem. 𝐒𝐒𝐒𝐿 observed the creature in 𝐒𝐿ong's grasp and asked skeptically, 𝐒𝐿ong, is that insecta diadem? Hearing her guess, he held the trembling creature high in front of her. He replied cheerfully, yes, that's correct. He thought to himself, so it's called a diadem here. He brought the insect closer for her to see. It looked quite pitiful at this moment. With its watery eyes and trembling body, he explained, this type of insect is commonly found. They often live inside hungfong hives. In the Central Plains, they're called diadem, while in Korea, they're known as leaf-cutter bees. This species belongs to the Meloidae family, 𝐒𝐒𝐿 remarked in surprise. But why would a diadem live in a hungfong's nest? I never knew that, he explained cheerfully. Their life cycle is quite extraordinary, he continued, explaining their parasitic behavior. They exploit the hive's environment to develop. This allows them to avoid external threats. 𝐒𝐒𝐿 found this information incredibly fascinating. She stared at the small creature held tightly in the tongs. 𝐒𝐿ong carefully placed it into a wooden vial. He was hoping to find a few more. They navigated together through the damp rock walls. The space within the cave grew progressively darker, but they persevered with their important mission. Their life cycle is quite unique. Then, he began to share his knowledge. The reproductive methods of the Meloidae family are very strange. Typically, they would protect their eggs or create a safe environment for them to hatch. But not this species. Their eggs are small, oval, and yellow, and can appear anywhere from a rocky ledge to a leaf. They can even be found in the most desolate or overgrown places. They simply lay their eggs without any concern. Somehow, miraculously, the leafcutter bee larvae hatch and crawl to the highest nearby point. Once at the top, they cluster together and pretend to be a flower. But seriously, don't search for leafcutter bee larvae online. When a beautiful bumblebee flies by searching for nectar, upon seeing them, she happily exclaims, "Oh!" and she'll believe it's a real flower. The bee will then proceed with her task of collecting pollen. Meanwhile, the swarm of insects disguised as a flower becomes sinister, knowing exactly what she is about to do. Their wicked little hands reach for the bee, and the moment she draws near, they swiftly latch onto her, dooming the bumblebee's nest. He pointed towards the diadem in his hand and said, I don't know why they choose bumblebees, but I've heard it's the best environment for diadem larvae to thrive. 𝐒𝐿ong hesitated. Is that really so? She lowered her head sorrowfully. Those poor, sweet bumblebees. 𝐒𝐿ong smiled to comfort her. It's simply the law of nature. It cannot be changed. She then recalled something and said, but isn't this the type of poison that causes skin burns? I know that eating too much of it can be fatal. He smiled, confirming, yes, it can indeed burn the skin. He described the wounds from the creature's orange fluid, explaining how skin contact creates blisters that resemble a burn. She looked at the pathetic ground beetle, her face slowly turning red, biting her lip and covering her mouth. She whispered, but does it really have that effect? He simply replied, yes, until the toxin is expelled from the body. Seeing her expression, he narrowed his eyes and joked. It can certainly make a man rise to the occasion. 𝐒𝐿ong quickly turned and fled, her face beet red, shouting with her eyes squeezed shut as she ran. No, let's just go back to the Hall of 10,000 Poisons. 𝐒𝐿ong shouted in surprise. Wait, let me catch a few more. A moment later, after 𝐒𝐿ong had caught more ground beetles, he said, let's return to the hall, and I will show the warriors how to prepare the medicine. He looked at the men before him and spoke slowly. Now, listen carefully. He held up a single finger for emphasis. First, dry the ground beetles and grind them into a powder. At this, everyone's expression grew serious. Complex formulas ran through their minds as they listened to his analysis. Consuming 3 fen, which is 11.75 milligrams of the toxin, would surely be fatal. For every jin, or 3.75 kilograms of body weight, ingesting 3/10 of a fen, which is 1.25 milligrams, would kill half of those who take it. He looked at everyone and concluded, therefore, prepare the medicine with a dosage of 1/10 of a fen, or 0.375 milligrams, which is about 10 drops of water, or 0.351 milliliters. After finishing his speech, he asked, have you all understood? Everyone stood in stunned silence, lost in thought. A single idea echoed in their minds. My head is about to explode. The man in the lead removed his mask and spoke slowly. Your explanation was crystal clear, and your mathematics are brilliant. He emphasized each word. We will definitely succeed. 𝐒𝐿ong replied cheerfully. Great, haha, I'm counting on all of you. That night, under a full moon, a voice echoed in a brightly lit room. I never imagined the ground beetle had such an effect. After hearing his granddaughter recount the story of catching the creatures and the lesson in the medicine hall, her grandfather spoke. It seems I should also reevaluate the poisons our Tang Clan possesses. 𝐒𝐿ong obediently replied, yes, I was thinking the same thing. He gently cleared his throat with a hand to his mouth and continued. Is he still that skilled with mathematics? 𝐒𝐿ong replied, yes. He divided 1 fen into 10 parts and said it was equivalent to the weight of 10 drops of water. Hearing this, her grandfather's expression turned serious. He gently rubbed his thumb and index finger together, his voice low. It truly reminds me of his immature younger self. His brows furrowed. I thought I knew much about poisons, but he surprises me more than anyone. The more I learn, the more I realize what a priceless asset he is to the Temps family. Suddenly, he turned to his granddaughter, asking with a curious look, so, Do you find yourself liking him more than you did at first? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stammered. Grandfather. A blush crept across her face as she avoided his gaze. She clenched her fist and brought it to her mouth to hide her shyness, speaking softly. I just feel that I was too hasty before. So now, I feel guilty. He closed his eyes as if he understood her heart and gently advised. Alright then, just be sure to treat him well. From now on, then he asked again, but how will you test the medicine's effectiveness? Hearing this, she was taken aback, her eyes widening. Remembering what happened earlier, she covered her blushing face with her hands, feeling heat radiate from her skin. She said shyly, the elders are far too arrogant. Just thinking about 𝐒𝐒𝐒's wicked expression when he said it, she added, the clan will surely punish them. She recounted the tale to her grandfather, who asked in surprise. He said what? In just a moment, ... He burst out laughing. What an interesting character. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stood beside him silently, her face still bright red. Now, everyone was gathered in the main hall, all eyes on the warrior standing before them. The elders were focused, some rested their chins on their hands, while others crossed their arms, waiting in anticipation. The warrior placed a hexagonal wooden box before 𝐒𝐒𝐒 and said, Master 𝐒𝐒𝐒, here is your medicine. He glanced at the box and asked, what is this? The warrior clasped his hands respectfully, explaining, we mixed in licorice powder and honey to add a sweet flavor, making it easier for you to consume. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 thought to himself, how thoughtful, opening the box and seeing the glossy black pill and the red velvet inside. He asked, did you prepare it exactly as I instructed? The man replied carefully, of course, Lord 𝐒𝐒𝐒, we followed the exact dosage you specified. Hearing this, the elders stirred. One said coolly, HMPH. Such a fuss. Another, with his arms crossed, agreed. Truly, they're acting as if they've created something special. The man seated in the head position closed his eyes, his authoritative voice booming. Silence. He looked toward 𝐒𝐒𝐒 and continued, the medicine has been prepared. So, how will you prove its effectiveness? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 wondered. Prove it. A powerful hand slammed down on the table with a loud bang as a voice roared. Of course, you have to prove it. The large-bellied elder was the one who had hit the table. He stood up and bellowed. How can we possibly send an unverified poison to the Lord of The person next to him chimed in. Indeed, any mistake could be incredibly dangerous. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 gazed at the warrior. Then there's no other choice. The warrior nodded grimly. None, he confirmed, reaching into his robes. The elders watched his every move with intense focus. He then approached them, placing a hexagonal box just like 𝐒𝐒𝐒's before the portly elder. He let out an indifferent H. Then he picked up the pill to inspect it, saying with contempt, you expect us to test your medicine. Who knows what you've put in here? The man beside him also warned under his breath that this kid was not only an outsider, but also had sinister motives. Hearing this, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 simply offered a knowing smile. Grandfather 𝐒𝐒𝐒, who was enjoying the show, was suddenly pulled back to reality when he was called Grandpa. He turned in surprise, asking, what is it? Didn't you say that those who practice the Tang Clan's martial arts are immune to all poisons? Is that true? He nodded. That's right. The boy clapped his hands with a childish glee, continuing to tease. But why do you seem so worried then? The grandfather touched his head, as if agreeing. Now that you mention it, I do feel a little concerned, sensing that everything was unfolding just as he had planned and seeing the grim expressions on everyone's faces. He cleared his throat and announced, come now, you are all elders of the clan. You've reached a state where 100 poisons cannot harm you. He emphasized further, surely you aren't afraid of a mere earth-grade poison? And indeed, the elder crushed the pill, a confident smile gracing his lips. 𝐒𝐒𝐒's group couldn't hide their amusement as they watched the elders, one by one, pop the pills into their mouths, some even scoffing aloud. Who would be afraid of such a low-grade poison? Another one quickly chimed in. Exactly. You've severely underestimated us. As one elder swallowed the pill, he bellowed a threat. If this pill has no effect, you'll face the consequences. We will restore order to this clan. With that, he closed his mouth, crushed a pill, and swallowed. A tense silence fell as everyone waited, anxiously anticipating the pill's effects. Time passed, but nothing unusual happened. One man couldn't hold back a sneer and pointed his finger. He gestured toward 𝐒𝐒𝐒 and shouted, see. Absolutely nothing happened, but before he could finish his sentence, he froze as if struck by lightning. His own disciple's head suddenly shot upward. All the elders were now staring intently at the ground. The atmosphere was both silent and bizarre. On that day, the clan's discipline was re-established. Everything unfolded with immense force. Under the bright sun, a voice rang out. Send this medicine to the city Lord of 𝐒𝐒𝐒 immediately. This medicine is truly highly effective. A short while later, the elders departed with peculiar expressions, each man anxiously clutching the front of his robes. Watching them leave with flushed faces, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 smiled and said, just as you said, Grandpa, all I had to do was provoke them about poison, and they walked right into the trap. The old man chuckled in response. Haha, those are men with some pride left. They had no choice but to follow your lead. The grandfather smiled and gently reminded him, but don't hold it against them. They act for the sake of the clan. Hearing this, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 wondered, really? The old man closed his eyes peacefully. After all, we are one family. The boy obediently replied to his grandfather, I understand. Just then, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 rushed inside. She ran in with a look of pure panic on her face. Too long. Something terrible has happened. Seeing her frantic state, he quickly asked, "What is it, my lady? Please, calm down." She bent over, panting for breath, before managing to say, "We, .. She slowly stood up, steadying her breathing, and continued, "There's a problem with our pet." He cried out in astonishment. "What?" Suddenly, his grandfather's hand shot out and grabbed him by the collar. The old man's voice was a low, determined growl. "Son-in-law." His face was furious, his eyes practically blazing. He roared, "Our what?" He held him by the collar, veins bulging on his forehead. Overcome with fury, he demanded of Tu-Along once more, "You two have a child already? You've got some serious nerve. It seems I haven't disciplined you properly." Hoengun stood frozen nearby, her face a mixture of anger and embarrassment as she exclaimed, "It's not a child, it's 𝐒𝐒𝐒𝐿. The centipede Tu-Along is raising." At that moment, Tu-Along was completely stunned, his expression filled with alarm. He opened his mouth, but for a long moment, no words came out. His grandfather finally released his collar. He approached Hoengun and asked worriedly, "You mean the 𝐒𝐒𝐿?" She quickly explained, "I saw you've been training more lately, so I asked my sister to help look after them." Hearing this, he thought to himself, could something have happened to my babies? In his confusion, his wandering hand landed on her chest. He said, "Let me see." The grandfather then heard his granddaughter's exasperated voice cry out, "Ah, too long." Not there. A moment later, the two saw the group of 𝐒𝐒𝐿 lying peacefully on the ground. Ignoring the red handprint on his face, he whispered, "You're saying they suddenly started moving?" Hoengun clenched her fists and said, "They've been fine all morning. I just hope they aren't hurt." He looked at the adorable expressions of the 𝐒𝐒𝐿 on the ground and noted, their color is a bit transparent, and their shells look strange. Suddenly, his eyes lit up as a thought struck him. Seeing this, he smiled cheerfully and said, "Miss Hoengun, it seems there's no need to worry." Watching the 𝐒𝐒𝐿 slowly begin to move, he calmly explained, "They're just molting. Like snakes, when their bodies grow, they need to shed their old skin. It seems that time is now." Grandfather Hoengun asked in surprise, leaning against the enclosure. The boy nodded. "That's right." Suddenly, a centipede began rubbing its head on the ground with a scratching sound. Hoengun cried out, "Too-Long, look over there." As the centipede slowly shed its old skin, revealing a new orange-gold shell, she gasped. "Its head is coming out." The creature finally emerged completely. Now completely free of its shell, the old man's voice filled with wonder. "Oh, how miraculous." Hoengun, who was watching intently, suddenly exclaimed, "Zhao Long." The other two were starting to molt. Another centipede slowly emerged from its casing, its new, soft orange-gold shell practically inviting a touch. The last one also gracefully shed its old skin, its whole body now moving freely. Seeing all three of them lying obediently on the ground, he exclaimed happily, "They've all molted successfully." Hoengun's eyes sparkled as she stared at them. Then she spoke up. "They look like they've gotten bigger." She turned to Zhao Long and asked, "What are their names?" He froze for a second. The thought had never occurred to him. His expression immediately grew serious as he stroked his chin, feigning deep thought. Looking at the three centipedes on the ground, he thought himself clever and declared, "Let's call them 𝐒𝐒𝐿, 𝐒𝐒𝐿, and 𝐒𝐒𝐿. Hearing these three ridiculous names, Hoengun immediately shook her head in protest. Absolutely not. She imagined a day when these small centipedes might soar through the sky, crossing over towering mountain ranges. As she turned to him to explain, if a centipede lives for 1,000 years, it becomes a dragon. They need more dignified names, ones that are better suited for a dragon's form. Hearing this, he couldn't help but laugh out loud. "Ha ha, my lady, how could centipedes possibly become dragons after 1,000 years? The grandfather, overhearing their argument, then chimed in, "Nevertheless, a 1,000-year-old centipede is still called a dragon. We will call them the heavenly dragons." From the old man's tone, he instantly understood where Hoengun's earlier attitude came from and thought to himself, so, he was the one who taught her that. He bowed his head to look at the three centipedes, thinking carefully before he spoke. After making up his mind, he turned to Hoengun and said, "Let's call them So, Wang, and Ban." She repeated in surprise, "So, Wang, and Ban." He smiled gently as he looked at these new members of their family. He explained, "The one that hatched first is named So. The second one has the appearance of a female, so I named her Wang, as in fragrance. The third one has a very glossy shell. I'll call him Ban." Hoengun looked intently at all three, slowly repeating their names. "So, Wang, Ban." They all watched the group of centipedes with excitement. She said gently, "Normally, the father is the one who gives his children their names, right?" And with that, the three little centipedes had their new names. Zhao Long was walking down the road, his staggering gait causing people around him to take notice. As he walked, he thought, "Another day has come to an end. These centipedes clinging to me is getting really tiring." He sat down next to a crate on the roadside and let out a sigh. He could feel that his inner shirt was still slightly damp. He thought to himself, "It seems, my body hasn't completely dried yet, but at least, I can move around." He sighed again. This still feels a little uncomfortable." All of a sudden, the centipede scrambled out, and one of them touched its head to his cheek, chirping happily. He smiled faintly and thought, "You all have gotten much heavier. The biggest change is your size." He lay back on the crate, looking up at the sky. His cheek was red from the friction. The centipede next to him chirped softly, as if to apologize for being a burden. Another one chimed in with a chirp of its own. He sighed, reminiscing. Asterisk at first, they were only as big as sausages. But now, they're as large as my whole arm. He felt a surge of joy as he watched them, growing larger. He could feel every movement beside him, and thought, my waist must feel cramped for the centipedes. Asterisk, now all they can do is cling to my arm and waist. Suddenly, a loud laugh boomed in his ear. I told you I was right. He sat up straight and looked toward the sound, spotting two men, one tall and one short. They were walking right toward him. He quickly moved to shield his little group of unsure if their intentions at that moment were good or bad. The tall man's eyes suddenly grew curious. He readied himself to leave at any moment. The sound of their steady footsteps made the atmosphere even more tense. He took a deep breath to maintain his composure. The little centipedes also seemed to sense the threat. They began to squirm more intensely beneath his thin shirt. He gently patted them, offering a silent reassurance. The two strangers continued to laugh and talk quite naturally. He watched their every small movement to stay on guard. Maybe they're just travelers passing through here, he thought. He sat up straight, following the sound with his eyes. He saw two men, one tall, and one short, walking down the road. The short man had a mole on his face and was holding a small, red pouch in his hand. He laughed to the person beside him. It really is the Tang Clan. We need to observe them carefully. The man on the right agreed. Let's go. He stroked the head of a centipede, clinging to him. He then heard that loud laugh again. Making money is so easy. He looked after them and wondered in surprise. What was that all about? Looking up at the sky, he realized it was a truly beautiful day. White clouds drifted lazily across the sky. At the Tang Clan's estate, the scenery was the same as always. The atmosphere was perfectly quiet. The head of the family cleared his throat. Hai Long, this is truly wonderful news. He looked at Zhao Long and asked, didn't you just send out your homemade medicine? Did you send your medicine to the Lord of Siswan City? He nodded in response. Yes, I did. He pictured the man's plump figure crying tears of joy. The man gave a thumbs up and announced, I heard that the medicine worked very well for him. Because of that, the city lord has sent a large reward in his thanks. Both of them were overjoyed to hear that. Is that so? Zhao Long asked happily. Hoengan's father laughed loudly. You've only just become my and you're already helping me profit so quickly. You have done so much for me. He laughed awkwardly, scratching his head. It was nothing. Suddenly, his expression turned serious, and he spoke slowly. That is why, he said, stroking his beard as he looked directly at him, I will give you a spirit medicine, whether you modestly refuse it or not. Zhao Long asked, stunned. A spirit medicine? What do you mean? He remembered the man's words from before, that the spirit medicine would increase one's internal energy. Hoengan chimed in. Father, what is that spirit medicine? He replied, it's nothing too grand. He looked at the two of them and spoke, enunciating every word. The bile of the golden-haired Wind King. It was the most precious, medicinal ingredient in this region. Hai Long couldn't hide his surprise at such a magnificent gift. He knew exactly how great its value was. His contributions were finally being acknowledged by the family. The family head smiled, looking at his son-in-law with great pride. New plans began to form in his mind. He silently promised that he would not disappoint everyone. The bile of the golden-haired Wind King. Long's mind immediately went to honeybees. He wondered, bee honey, is that the reward? I heard internal energy is vital to becoming a master, so I'll take it. Thinking this, he happily shouted, thank you, father-in-law. Hoengan's expression suddenly grew tense, all joy gone. She spoke, father, in a flat tone, she asked, you call this a reward, but it's just honey. Seeing his daughter's attitude, her father looked uncomfortable and stammered, about that. Not letting him finish, she grabbed Tu Long's hand, crying out in frustration. Tu Long's contribution this time cannot be treated so lightly. Although the golden-haired bee king is a mid-tier poison insect, its honey is the lowest grade among all spiritual medicines. You can't skimp on Tu Long's reward. He performed a great service. She frowned, demanding a proper prize for him. It should at least be an elixir that boosts internal energy by a year. Her father lowered his head, his voice dropping as he tried to explain. Even as an elixir, the refinement cost is not cheap. Hearing this, she clenched her hands, her eyes blazing with fire as she gritted her teeth. Compared to the effort Tu Long put in, that's still nothing. Her father coughed, avoiding her intense gaze, thinking, a grown daughter really is like water poured out. Tu Long broke the heavy silence, looking at the man and asking, what is a golden-haired bee king? The man turned back and cleared his throat. He pictured the massive golden honeycomb on the branch, with bees diligently flying back and forth, and began to explain. The golden-haired bee king is a type of mid-tier poison insect that usually lives deep in the forest. It resembles a large bee, about the size of a small dog. From experience, eating its honey can increase one's internal energy by 2 months. However, what truly captured Tu Long's attention was the sheer size of the golden-haired bee king. His eyes lit up with excitement as he asked, that big? As big as a puppy? How interesting. Seeing him so delighted, Hoengan pinched his cheek to get his attention. Tu Long, wait a moment, I'm still trying to be angry here. Just then, her father spoke up again, looking a bit awkward. Hoengan, my dear, that wasn't my intention. I thought 𝐒𝐒𝐒 might want to find the golden-haired bee king himself, so I chose this. Hearing this, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 was startled, thinking, go myself. He quickly stood up, asking with excitement, Father-in-law, do you want me to go find it myself? The man nodded in confirmation. That's right. 𝐒𝐒𝐒's breathing quickened, his face flushing with excitement. He thought to himself, gather the honey, myself. Back when I was a YouTuber, I went honey harvesting several times. He rushed towards the door, shouting, let's go, father-in-law. When it comes to gathering honey, I'm an expert. The older man laughed, sharing his enthusiasm. Ha, I knew you would like it. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sighed, watching the two of them leave, their excited conversation still echoing in her ears. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked with curiosity, what does the golden-haired bee king look like? Her father replied coolly, well, it looks like a bee, of course. After leaving the Sichuan Temp's hall, their journey to the honey-gathering spot began. Along the way, he mused, since this is precious information from my father, surely there won't be any competition. But upon arriving, he discovered two groups of people, already locked in a heated argument. A man with a scar declared, we were here first, so the golden-haired bee king's honey is ours. A man in black fiercely retorted, what are you talking about? We legally purchased the information, so it rightfully belongs to us. Hearing this, 𝐒𝐒𝐒's group was completely stunned. Someone from the scarred man's group questioned him. You bought the info? So did we. Was it from a shaggy-haired guy with a large mole? ... on his face. The man in black couldn't hide his shock. How did you know? Regardless, we are not backing down. 𝐒𝐒𝐒's expression suddenly froze. He suddenly remembered two men he'd seen on the road. Could it be them? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 started to realize they had sold the same information to multiple buyers. 𝐒𝐒𝐒's father, who had been listening to the argument, began to tremble with rage. He clenched his fists and bit his lip, cursing under his breath. Those damn bastards, he roared. How dare you insult the Sichuan Temp's family, right here. His shout made everyone turn to face him, their faces filled with utter shock. One man stammered in panic. What? The Sichuan Temp's family. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 felt his honey-gathering plan falling apart as he recalled his father-in-law's earlier warning. It was a word of advice before this journey had even begun. 𝐒𝐒𝐒, this is your first time out, so you must be extremely careful. Remember that you are a member of our Tang family. He had replied politely, yes sir. The man then looked at the warriors lined up below and said sternly, take them with you. You need to learn how to lead men. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked in surprise, yes, you want me to take them? He glanced at 𝐒𝐒𝐒, then hesitated. But, Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒, before he could finish, the man let out a hearty laugh. Haha, this kid, 𝐒𝐒𝐒, is your person. You are to be her lifelong partner. Hearing this, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 blushed and stammered, partner? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 also smiled and encouraged him. You'll do great. 𝐒𝐒𝐒, she then added, I'll help you too, which only made him feel even more flustered. He replied, I will do my absolute best. Back in the present, the air between the Sichuan Temp's family and the other groups grew incredibly tense, filled with sharp, cold stares. They glared at each other without a shred of compromise. A heavy silence fell over the entire area. Standing in the middle, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 could feel the immense pressure. He thought about how to resolve the conflict unfolding before him. The Temp's family has its own dignified way of handling things. Will these people truly dare to confront us? His father-in-law was still observing his reaction from behind. This was the first real test that he would have to overcome. He was anxious inside, but tried to remain calm on the outside. All eyes were now fixed upon the members of the Temp's family. He worriedly considered his current predicament. What should I do now to resolve this situation peacefully? What's the plan? He turned to the man beside him, the captain of the 𝐒𝐒𝐬𝐬 squad, seeking his counsel on how to proceed. Should we offer them a share? 𝐒𝐬𝐬𝐬 stroked his chin, speaking in a low voice. How would we split it? The man crossed his arms rigidly. He clearly disagreed. Who are they to demand a share from the Tang Clan of 𝐒𝐒𝐒 voiced her agreement as well. I don't know who they are, but they're certainly audacious. She glared at the opposing group, a murderous glint in her eyes. How dare they sell information that the Tang Clan of Sichuan had already purchased? Hearing their leader's name, he recognized her and exclaimed in shock, the poison flower, 𝐒𝐒𝐬. His words made the man behind him cry out in fear. A direct member of the Tang Clan is here? The leader immediately cupped his fists. Clenching his jaw, he considered his options, then bowed his head and said, our Fong Van sect was not aware that this matter involved the great Tang Clan of Sichuan, so we will withdraw. When the others nearby saw his actions, they were equally astonished. Seemingly understanding the reason, they followed his lead, cupping their fists and bowing. Our Vanho sect will also take its leave. Another man cursed in frustration. Damn it, I won't let this go. And then he vanished, watching them flee as if they had seen a ghost. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked in surprise. They just ran. He couldn't help but wonder, is the Tang Clan of Sichuan really that terrifying? Seeing them disappear, he asked, is it over? Not necessarily, 𝐒𝐒𝐬𝐬 answered calmly. He predicted they were almost certainly hiding somewhere nearby. Those types don't retreat, so he then turned to give an order to his subordinate. 𝐒𝐒𝐒, pinpoint their locations. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 cupped his hands respectfully before his chest and replied, yes, great master. Seeing 𝐒𝐒𝐒's anxious face, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 reassured him. It's all right, 𝐒𝐒𝐒. He gazed toward the mountain forest ahead and murmured, my bees. At that moment, 𝐒𝐒𝐒, 𝐒𝐒𝐒, and 𝐒𝐒𝐒 were hiding behind a large boulder. Before them stood a massive tree with large hollows in its trunk, where several huge bees were buzzing about. Looking closer, the bees were a mix of black and yellow, covered in thick, dense fur. The swarm continuously flew in and out of the tree trunk, the sound of their wings echoing loudly. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 exclaimed, "Those are the 𝐒𝐒𝐒. Hu-Engen was in awe. "This is the first time I've seen one. It's enormous," he replied cheerfully. "Aren't they adorable?" Hu-Engen nodded in praise. "Their fur looks so fluffy." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 added with pride, "That's why they're called the golden-haired bee kings." After observing for a while, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 guessed, "Still, this colony seems a bit small. Only a few hundred of them, right? Can a bee really get that big?" Hearing the unfamiliar word, Hu-Engen asked, surprised. "Colony," he patiently explained. "Ah, that's what you call the entire swarm. Usually, a hive has between 5,000 and 7,000 bees," she asked in amazement. "You can tell that without even going inside." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 answered confidently, "You can get a rough estimate just by watching the number going in and out of the entrance." Just then, the sound of footsteps from behind made them turn. Calbai knelt on one knee, reporting, "Great Master, I've located the 4 sects. "Where are they?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked. Calbai hesitated before revealing their position. He recounted how he had tracked them, and just as predicted, they were currently lighting a fire, waiting. He couldn't help but curse under his breath. "Those damn fools. They're right on the opposite side. While I can't see exactly what they're doing, they're definitely preparing to make a move." After hearing the report, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stroked his chin thoughtfully. So they're likely waiting for nightfall to use the Tang Clan's method to get the honey." "What is the Tang Clan's method?" 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked with curiosity. Seeing the boy's interest, the man explained, "If you burn mugwort leaves and let the smoke drift into the hive, the bees become much calmer. Then we can go inside and collect the honey." Hearing this, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 nodded in admiration. "Oh, that truly is an intelligent method." Beside them, Calbai spoke up hesitantly, "But the wind is currently blowing towards us." The group looked up and, seeing that he was right, they all let out a collective sigh. Just as everyone was starting to feel worried, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 suddenly clenched his fist and struck his other palm, exclaiming with joy, "I've got it." Calbai quickly asked, "Have you thought of a way, sir?" His face flushed with excitement as he explained his idea. "If the wind is blowing towards us, that means we can use it to conceal our scent." Hu-Engen thought for a moment, then replied, "That's right." 𝐒𝐒𝐒 immediately shot to his feet, looked towards the tree, and shouted, "I'll be right back." Hearing this, Hu-Engen cried out in alarm, 𝐒𝐿. Seeing him run off, she quickly grabbed his sleeve to hold him back and stop him. "Don't, 𝐒𝐿. The 𝐒𝐿 are mid-tier poisonous creatures. They're extremely dangerous." But instead of fear, he was more determined. "Just once, I'll try to touch one and come right back." Suddenly, a massive boulder came rolling towards them, causing them both to cry out in terror. The boulder continued to roll toward the 𝐒𝐿's nest, and then stopped. They both stared in horror at the scene before them. 𝐒𝐿 trembled and whispered. From within the tree trunk, the bees quickly swarmed out, buzzing with murderous intent. Hu-Engen quickly threw her arms around him and pulled him in the opposite direction, saying frantically, "We need to run." Now, with his neck caught in her grip, 𝐒𝐿 let out a strangled cry. The once peaceful forest instantly erupted into chaos as tension filled the air. High above, the cloud mist drifted lazily as the sky bled into dusk. Perched on a rock, 𝐒𝐿 let out a frustrated sigh. "Isn't there any way to solve this?" He squeezed his eyes shut, trying to calm his mind and organize his thoughts. "To start a fire, I have to go against the wind. But I'm trapped between the members of the 4 sects and that swarm of bees." He recalled the bees, their fur as fluffy as clouds, and his lips pressed into a thin line. "The golden-haired bee king is nothing like any bee I've ever known." Opening his eyes, he touched his chin, the memory of Hu-Engen whisking him to safety, sending a chill down his spine. You could hear their wings from 30 meters away. Not even hornets were that intense. Suddenly, a voice called from behind, 𝐒𝐿, "Over here." He turned to see it was Hu-Engen, and a smile broke out on his face. "Ah, Miss Hu-Engen." She approached with his little centipedes, to rest it on her shoulders, while she held another out in front of him, saying cheerfully, "They seem to be done eating. They were just flying in circles, so I brought them to you." Watching the little centipede chirp, he said with genuine feeling, "Thank you so much, Miss Hu." The centipedes flew over to him. "They've become much calmer," 𝐒𝐿 remarked softly. Hu-Engen sat down beside him. Though neither of them spoke, a warm and comfortable silence settled between them. After a long moment, Hu-Engen turned to him, breaking the quiet. "Have you figured anything else out?" He hesitated. I just wanted to observe a little longer." She immediately looked regretful. "I'm sorry for constantly rushing you. 𝐒𝐿, just take your time and think. There is no need to hurry." Hearing this only increased the pressure he felt. He just smiled silently, thinking to himself, she's definitely rushing me." Suddenly, Hu-Engen looked ahead and cried out. 𝐒𝐿 followed her gaze. Over there, by the base of the tree, in the distance, 2 monkeys were fighting. While the swarm of bees hovered around the nearby tree trunk, a chaotic mix of sounds filled the air. She asked, "Monkeys, are they fighting?" 𝐒𝐿 was stunned. Monkeys. One monkey raised its limbs, high, trying to intimidate its rival while letting out a constant stream of threatening noises. The other refused to back down, matching its fierce attitude. Witnessing the scene, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 covered her mouth and gasped. Oh my goodness, they must be furious. Zhao Long watched in silence, when a faint scent suddenly drifted past his nose. Miss 𝐒𝐒𝐒, he called out. He glanced around and said, it seems there's a strange smell. He sensed it was coming from the golden-haired bee king's hive. A cautious guess forming in his mind. Asterisk. This scent, ... Could it be? His expression instantly darkened at the thought. Asterisk. Is it possible? Pheromones. He quickly pointed towards the tree, shouting in alarm. Miss 𝐒𝐒𝐒, we have to get away. The bees are about to go berserk and swarm this way. Though she didn't understand what was happening, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 immediately nodded. Huh? I understand. She scrambled to her feet, scooping him into her arms and taking off just like before, leaving Zhao Long momentarily stunned by her lightning-fast reaction. Just as the two of them leaped high into the air to escape, a massive explosion erupted from the ground, sending dirt and rock flying everywhere. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 held him tight as they landed, skidding across the ground. Her body froze, a look of pure shock on her face at the sight before them. The bees swarmed out like a raging storm. One of the monkeys was already torn to shreds, while the other let out a final, dying shriek. Huge gashes appeared on the monkey's arms as the swarm descended gleefully to begin their feast. Seeing the two monkeys become a gruesome meal for the bees, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 couldn't help but gasp in horror. That was way too close. He nodded in agreement. She turned to him, her curiosity piqued. But Zhao Long, how did you know the golden-haired bee king was about to attack? You told us to get away before we even heard them. Remembering the scent from the tree, he stammered. It was because of the smell. What smell? She pressed. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 thought for a moment before saying, come to think of it, it smelled like night-blooming jasmine. He was astonished to hear her name. Seeing that her expression had returned to normal, he wondered, asterisk, could it be that 𝐒𝐒𝐒 can distinguish the scent of pheromones? To confirm his theory, he asked if she recognized the fragrance from earlier. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 smiled and replied, of course, she continued. The scent from before was just like night-blooming jasmine. Before she could even finish, he lunged forward, grabbing her by both shoulders. That's it, he exclaimed joyfully. Zhao Long, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stammered, flustered by his sudden outburst. He buried his face in her shoulder, completely overcome with emotion. He felt a warmth and closeness between them. Her face turned a deep shade of red, though she didn't understand why he was crying. The little centipedes peeked their heads out from inside his robes. Zhao Long lifted his head from her shoulder, a brilliant smile on his face. I've found a way, a method to wipe out the forceps and get the honey. Under the bright moonlight in the quiet night, everyone was gathered around the campfire. Each group was grilling their own food. One man tipped his head back to drink some wine, his face slightly flushed. He inhaled the savory aroma of grilled fish. After finishing his drink, he wiped his mouth and let out a hearty laugh. Ha ha! Now that's delicious. Someone across from him leaned in curiously. So, when do you think we'll make our move for the honey? The man thought for a moment before answering. Honestly, it's hard to say. 3 days ago, they were buzzing all over the place. But now, it's completely silent, he speculated. My guess is, they're planning something big. The others listened intently, all of them eager for any news about the giant hive. The sound of fish sizzling over the red-hot coals filled the air. The smell of wine made the atmosphere lively, but no one was letting their guard down. It was going to be a long night for all of them. In the distance, the mountain ranges were faint silhouettes under the moonlight. A man with a scar on his face glanced warily into the darkness. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 chimed in. Perhaps you're right. Then he suddenly asked, but are those beehives really profitable? Have you been living under a rock? If this beeswax is for the royals, it's worth a fortune. Only royalty uses it. They just take the honey and discard the hives, leaving the rest for us to claim. A sinister grin spread across his face. And if we fail, hee. The other man rubbed his hands together, echoing the wicked laugh. Hey, recalling the girl with the piercing gaze, he murmured, we also have the poison flower and the Tamho of Murim to worry about. We must be cautious, ... and not let her cause any trouble. Thinking of her beauty, he chuckled, she's really not bad at all. That figure of hers, hee. The man across from him licked his lips greedily. Just the thought of it gets my blood pumping. Another man joked, who knows, maybe one of us will even marry into their family. A vile voice then cut in, oh of course, a life debt must be repaid. Suddenly, a strange fragrance filled the air, making him pause. He scoffed as the men rose to their feet, murmuring amongst themselves. Where's this scent coming from? Could it be the smell of that poisonous flower? Hee. It has to be. Its fragrance must be as exquisite and sweet as its beauty. As the source drew nearer, everyone's expressions turned to shock. Their jaws dropped. What is that? Then, someone recognized it and screamed. It's the queen bee. The queen is leading her swarm in an all-out assault. This is our chance to move in, right? Taking the lead through the tall grass, he exclaimed excitedly. Time to get the queen's honey. He clutched something carefully wrapped in cloth. The three of them started moving forward with caution. Reaching the base of the tree, they peered into a dark opening. The group hesitated. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 steadied her nerves and cleared her throat. Too long. This place doesn't seem safe. Let me lead the way. One by one, the three of them stepped inside. Once inside, they took in they gasped in astonishment. Whoa, look at that! The honeycomb is massive. A giant, glittering golden hive hung just above their heads. Its cells were constructed with perfect geometry, creating a truly impressive sight. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 began to light a fire, creating smoke as she spoke. Luckily, it seems the entire swarm has already flown outside. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 heard a strange noise, his eyes darting suspiciously. What's going on? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stared in disbelief. She strained her eyes, a worried tremor in her voice. There's no honey. That can't be right. The honeycombs were completely barren. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked with a serious expression, could it be true that not a single bee is left? Just as 𝐒𝐒𝐒 said, this is unprecedented. It's so strange. Then, a suspicious detail occurred to 𝐒𝐒𝐒. This entire hive. There isn't a single egg. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 pressed him. What does that have to do with the missing honey? He then confidently presented his theory. Perhaps the swarm was preparing to leave long ago, so they consumed all of their stored honey. He continued, it's likely because they said the presence of humans nearby. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sighed, so that's what happened. To confirm his theory, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 approached a nearby comb to examine it. Yes, that's it. When a swarm decides to migrate, they stop laying eggs. They no longer have the time or energy to care for the larvae. His words trailed off as his eyes caught sight of a large abdomen. The abdomen of a bee, and it was an exceptionally large one. A peculiar smile formed on his face as he turned to 𝐒𝐒𝐒. Sir, if you were to continuously use your Lightfoot technique without any rest, without a single break, how long could you maintain it? Though surprised, the man answered, at a moderate pace. I could probably keep it up for about 12 hours. Curiosity piqued. He asked, why do you ask? All of a sudden, just then, Calbai's frantic voice echoed from outside. Young Master, 𝐒𝐒𝐒. He stammered, the queen. Remembering what he'd just witnessed, he urged them frantically. The golden swarm is coming back. You have to get out of here now. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 immediately bent down. Reaching for something, he hesitated. Just a moment. Hearing this, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 yelled, we have to go. Young Master, 𝐒𝐒𝐒. Just leave it. Seeing him linger, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 grabbed his collar. 𝐒𝐒𝐒, let's go. Calbai waited anxiously by the entrance, shouting, hurry up. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 quickly followed, clutching something hidden inside his robes. The moon continued to shine brightly in the night sky. The three returned to their group, panting with exhaustion. Phew, a man nearby sighed in relief. That was way too close. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 let out a sharp breath. Phew, we're lucky. We got out before the swarm returned. Just then, the creature in 𝐒𝐒𝐒's robes poked its head out. It seemed to want a breath of fresh air. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stared, stunned. 𝐒𝐒𝐒, what is that you're holding? He just smiled and held up the enormous bee. This is the queen of the swarm. Since there was no honey, I brought back the one who makes it. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 cried out in terror. The queen bee? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stared at the bee, which was trying to look cute. She stammered, young Master 𝐒𝐒𝐒, don't tell me. Suddenly, all the color drained from both her and 𝐒𝐒𝐒's faces. The bee in his hand suddenly let out a piercing shriek. Be what? Unfazed, he added. It won't be long before the swarm realizes their queen, is missing. And then, they'll come straight for us. Far behind them, the entire swarm began to gather. They formed a dark swarm that blotted out the sky, but he remained completely oblivious. A menacing presence was creeping up right behind him. That black cloud drew ever closer. The sound of buzzing wings shattered the eerie silence. Yet, at that moment, he still seemed to have no idea. And yet, he smiled cheerfully. Run for it. And so, the perilous chase for their lives began. The group carrying the queen bee fled in a panic, as the buzzing from behind grew into a thunderous roar. Several days had now passed since the chase began. Looking into the queen bee's sparkling eyes, Xiaolong reassured it. Calm down now. I'll take you to a place where no one will bother you. During that time, the group had cut down on rest to travel with all their might. Looking at their current state, they were a truly pathetic sight. As the group sat resting, Xiaolong suddenly looked into the distance and shouted, they're here. Everyone looked over in a panic, and one person said in despair, I can't run anymore. On the way here, several members of the Venomous Blood Squad had already been left behind. He silently vowed to properly learn the lightness skill when he returned. Suddenly, someone stumbled forward and cried out, The person next to him was startled. Is another one falling behind? The group glanced back anxiously as they ran, only to see the man sprawled on the ground. A teammate yelled, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 has fallen. In the end, Huang 𝐒𝐒𝐒 of the Venomous Blood Squad was left behind. He immediately urged, everyone, use your lightness skill, and run faster. He secretly guessed that they would be safer if they put more distance between themselves and the queen bee. He asked, gasping for breath, Sir Xiaolong, can we really escape? Xiaolong replied, a bit uncertainly, probably. 3 days later, despite his efforts, Yajong could go on no longer, and collapsed to the ground. He coughed and gasped for air, telling the two before him, I'm sorry, Sir Xiaolong. This is as far as I can go. Xiaolong and 𝐒𝐒𝐒 looked like a mess, their hair completely Xiaolong looked at him in shock, calling out worriedly, Grandmaster. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 was silent for a moment before suggesting, Xiaolong, let me carry you. Hearing this, he shyly refused. Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒, there's no need. I can walk on my own. Unexpectedly, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 rubbed her face with both hands. After composing herself, she looked much brighter. She smiled at him with determination. I can do it. The people of the Tang Clan absolutely never give up. At the main gate of the Tang Clan, 2 guards stood watch, neatly dressed and holding their weapons. The 2 of them were carrying out their duties, seriously. When they heard footsteps in the distance, they glanced over. One of them muttered in confusion. As the figures drew closer, one of them said in astonishment, "Oh, the young miss has returned." He saw the 2 of them looking exhausted with dark circles under their eyes. They were clearly exhausted from lack of sleep. Zhao Long was supporting 𝐒𝐒𝐒. As they walked, the gatekeeper couldn't believe his eyes. His jaw dropped as he asked, "The young miss?" The entire Tang Clan was instantly thrown into chaos. They immediately fired a signal flare to summon the entire main family. The Grand Elder and the clan head heard the signal flare. The 2 of them quickly opened their doors and rushed outside. The clan head asked anxiously, "Is it something serious?" Someone immediately reported, "Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒 has returned home." He saw his weary daughter being supported by the servants, while Zhao Long stood anxiously beside her. The 2 of them looked utterly ragged. The clan head couldn't believe his eyes. "Is it true?" he asked. He hugged his daughter and cried out in anguish. "Zhao Long, what in the world happened?" The young man hastily knelt, stammering an explanation. "Please, calm down, Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒 is just exhausted after 10 days. She's been using her lightness skill without rest." As if remembering something, his tone suddenly turned serious. "But now is not the time to talk. We must get to the training grounds immediately." Hearing this, the Grand Elder asked, in surprise, "What? Why the training grounds?" Instead of answering, he reached into his shirt and took something out. He held the queen bee in both hands for everyone to see and announced, "This is the queen of the golden-haired bee kings. Soon, the other bees will arrive. We have to get to the ancient tree in the training grounds now." The Grand Elder couldn't help but burst into loud laughter. "Ha ha ha! This kid is truly promising. He's bound to achieve great things in the future." On the other side, the Tang Clan head's expression wasn't so pleased. He questioned, "What? Weren't you supposed to be collecting honey? But you brought back the queen bee instead?" Before he could answer, the Grand Elder clapped him on the shoulder, saying, "All right, let's go," which made him yelp in surprise. He used his lightness skill, grabbing Zhao Long and leaping into the air. This made him shout in panic. "Whoa, good heavens." The people on the ground quickly shielded their faces from the dust and wind. Zhao Long was swept through the air, held by the elder, making him dizzy. Suddenly, he cried out in alarm. "Ah!" The Grand Elder glanced over, asking worriedly, "What is it?" Seeing a familiar, dense, golden swarm in the distance, he quickly reported it. "Grand Elder, the bee swarm is rushing toward us." Hearing this, the old man remained calm. "Hump, so many of them. Did you bring them all here?" With that, he accelerated. "It's just ahead. Let's hurry up." The sudden burst of speed made him yell in fright. The Grand Elder landed roughly, kicking up rocks and dirt everywhere. He brought him to a massive ancient tree and announced, "We're here, Zhao Long." He quickly clutched the queen bee and rushed toward the tree. Looking up at the enormous tree trunk, Zhao Long said, "Golden-haired, bee king. This is the place I told you about. From now on, this is your home." The bee in his hands flapped its wings with a confused buzz. He pointed to the large hollow in front of him and asked if this would be suitable. But the only answer he received was the hum of countless wings. The golden-haired bee king cautiously approached the tree. After a careful inspection, it turned back to Zhao Long, seemingly smiling with satisfaction. Seeing this, a smile spread across his face. "Looks like this place is to your liking, huh?" he mused. Just as the main swarm grew closer, the Supreme Clan head shouted urgently, "Zhao Long, get out of there. The rest of the swarm is coming." Hearing his call, Zhao Long turned and replied, "Yes, honored elder." The approach of the swarm created a deafening roar, forcing everyone on the ground to look up. Their faces were a mixture of awe and apprehension, but the golden-haired bee king was overjoyed to see it swarm. Flapping its wings and buzzing loudly in welcome, it quickly guided the entire swarm into the base of the great tree, the place it had just scouted. The Supreme Clan head watched the scene unfold before him. He couldn't help but marvel aloud. "Humph, truly. In all my life, I have never witnessed a spectacle quite like this." Zhao Long also looked on, letting out a quiet breath. Watching the bees stream into the tree, he finally relaxed. The golden-haired bee king was successfully captured. Excellent. One of the bees lapped up water from a small wooden trough. Seeing them gather in groups to drink, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. He had prepared this for the exhausted golden-haired bees. It was a bit of sugar water to help them regain their strength. As the old saying goes, sharing a meal builds camaraderie. It's a simple act of kindness that can cultivate goodwill. Luckily, we have something like sugar here. What a fortunate turn of events. The Tang Clan members watched from a safe distance. Happy murmurs spread through the group. They're eating so eagerly. When you see them up close like this, they're actually quite cute. Watching the golden-haired bee king drink the sugar water with satisfaction, he felt a glimmer of hope. This should lower their guard a bit, and if they accept me as their master, all the better. Suddenly, he cried out, "Ah, that's right." Hearing him, the clan head turned. "What is it?" he asked with a touch of embarrassment. What about ... Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒?" The elder shot him a scornful look. "So, you remember her now?" Recalling his daughter's exhausted state, his tone grew even sharper. "She was so worn out, I had to leave her with her mother." I can't believe you made her use her agility arts for 10 days straight without rest. Zhao Long was too ashamed to meet his gaze. Yes, Father-in-law, ... I'm truly sorry, he muttered. She only slept for about 2 hours a day. The rest was spent running. At that moment, the Supreme Clan head remembered something else and called out, Zhao Long, remembering the group Zhao Long brought with him. He asked with concern, and what about the Blood Toxin Squad? Where are they now? Zhao Long froze, sweat dripping down his face. He hesitated. I suppose they've probably collapsed somewhere along the way. We'll probably have to send someone to pick them up. Hearing this, the Supreme Clan head could only close his eyes and let out a weary laugh. As ordered, the Blood Toxin Squad was soon brought back safely to the clan. In 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Yin's room, warm sunlight streamed through the window. 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Yin listened with delight as Zhao Long recounted the entire story. It seems the golden-haired bees have recovered their strength. I'm so glad, she said. Zhao Long smiled and agreed. Yes, Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Yin. He then added, thinking of the swarm? Right now, they're busy collecting nectar from the poisonous flowers in the Tang Clan mountains. She nodded. Oh my, how adorable. Suddenly, a frantic voice from outside cut their conversation short. Master Zhao Long. Master Zhao Long. Zhao Long glanced towards the door and asked, Yes, what is it? Though flustered, the servant maintained his decorum, gripping the doorframe as he urged, You need to come outside for a moment. He panted for a moment before explaining. Something strange is happening with the golden-haired bee swarm. They seem to be searching for something. Hearing this, Zhao Long grew thoughtful. He immediately dashed outside, with 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Yin following right behind him. High above, a number of the golden bees were already waiting. Seeing them fluttering overhead, he asked in surprise, Really? At the sound of his voice, the entire swarm immediately turned to face him. The buzzing of their wings intensified dramatically. As they began landing on his head and body, he cried out in confusion. Huh? Hey, what are you doing? 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Yin grew worried. Zhao Long, are you all right? The bees kept pulling at his arm, gripping his sleeves tightly. Why are you guys doing this? He demanded impatiently. Suddenly, his feet lifted off the ground. All he could do was manage a helpless, wry smile. Those on the ground could only stare as the swarm carried Zhao Long's figure higher into the sky. 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Yin's mouth fell open as she cried out in disbelief. Zhao Long. The swarm brought him to the giant tree and set him down. With the sound of wings buzzing in his ears, he landed unsteadily on his feet. His eyes widened in amazement at the sight before him. He turned to the bees in shock. What in the world happened to your hive? What's going on? He wondered. Just then, a bee flew up behind him and gently nudged him inside. He complied with a small laugh. All right, I get it. You want me to go inside? Stepping inside, he looked around and let out a soft gasp. Seeing the perfectly arranged shimmering golden honeycombs, he couldn't help but be amazed. The hive is almost completely built, and they've already started gathering honey. As he took it all in, one bee slowly flew towards him. He glanced over, confused. He realized it was the queen bee herself. She regarded him with a gentle and affectionate gaze. She flew over and landed on his arm, flapping her wings gently. Do you want me to lift you up? He whispered. In response, her wings beat even more strongly. However, the swarm grew thicker, clinging to his face until his features were completely distorted. His head throbbed. They were holding him so tightly he couldn't even move. He lowered his head, presenting the queen bee at her command. Her large shimmering eyes were fixed solely on him. The queen bee slowly closed her eyes, her forelegs reaching out to touch his face. Seeing this, Zhao Long cried out in shock. Huh? Hey, wait a minute. But it was too late. The queen bee pressed against his face, causing him to blush instantly. He groaned inwardly. Ah, my lips are touching something soft. His entire body burned with heat as his vision blurred and his mind spun into chaos. He swallowed instinctively, then panicked as he felt something flowing into him. The swarm buzzed all around, witnesses to the queen bee, forcing a kiss upon Zhao Long. As their lips parted, a small bubble formed between them. He quickly released her, gasping for air. Ha! ... Clapping a hand over his mouth, he pointed with a beach-red face and stammered, You, queen bee. That was my first time. What in the world are you doing? He felt his body spiraling out of his control as his mind reeled in confusion. His strength gave out completely, and he collapsed to the ground with a heavy thud. His eyes flashed as he looked up for the queen bee, gritting his teeth in fury, only to see her looking down at him, seemingly with a smile on her face. Baffled, he wondered, what did you just give me? After that intimate moment with the queen bee, Zhao Long lay curled up on the ground, his face contorted in agony. He struggled to cough. His face felt feverish, and white foam trickled from his mouth. A strange intense itch suddenly overwhelmed his entire body. He thrashed around on the ground, but it did nothing to relieve the agonizing sensation. His vision blurred. Fluid streamed from his nose and mouth without stopping. He could hear it, the heavy, frantic pounding of his own heart. He reached a trembling hand toward the queen bee. He forced out a cough. Hey, ... you. His voice was raspy with suspicion. What did you feed me? As his eyelids grew heavy, he saw her. She was just looking at him with a strangely innocent expression. And just before his eyes closed completely, he heard 𝐒𝐒𝐒-Yin's worried voice calling out Zhao Long. Zhao Long. Then he saw her turn to call for the Grandmaster. Grandmaster, something's wrong with Zhao Long. The old man's voice was grave. It seems, he's ingested a spiritual medicine, far too potent for him. His vision went completely black, but he could still hear 𝐒𝐒𝐒-𝐸n's frantic cry. Too long! Snap out of it. Then, he heard the old man speak. I will guide his energy. When he next opened his eyes, he saw 𝐒𝐒𝐸 holding a wet cloth, preparing to place it on his forehead. Seeing his eyes open, she exclaimed with relief. Too long! You're awake! He slowly sat up, rubbing his head as he looked around and asked. Where? Where am I? She replied. The Tang Clan's medical hall. She gently tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. She then began to explain what had happened. When we saw you being dragged away by the golden-haired bee king, the Grandmaster and I immediately rushed over, but by the time we reached you, you had already passed out. That's why we brought you here. She then asked, do you remember what happened? He hesitated for a moment. As the memory came flooding back, he covered his face, his mind in a total mess. My first kiss? He screamed internally. Seeing his reaction, 𝐒𝐒𝐸 asked with concern, Tiu-long, are you all right? Is there any part of your body that feels strange? When he didn't answer, she suggested, should I call for help? He quickly stopped her. No, that's not necessary. It's just, he trailed off again, letting out a long sigh. After collecting his thoughts, he finally explained, the queen bee fed me something. I think that's what caused all this. This happened. 𝐒𝐒𝐸 asked curiously, what exactly did you eat? He answered uncertainly, well, I don't know its proper name, but if I had to call it something, I'd say it's bee king's nectar. She repeated the unfamiliar term with a puzzled look. Bee king's nectar? He smiled and nodded in confirmation. That's right, bees gather nectar and pollen to survive, and worker bees spend their entire lives eating only those things. She pressed on, and what about the queen? He answered instantly, from the moment she's born until she dies. She eats only the bee king's nectar that the workers produce for her. And that's when it hit him. The bee king's nectar, the queen forced on him, was actually royal jelly. 𝐒𝐒𝐸's eyes widened in understanding. So that's what it was, she murmured. The food that sustains a queen for her entire life. Suddenly, a new thought struck him, and his voice grew excited. But bee king's nectar has other special properties. She immediately asked, what kind of properties? He explained enthusiastically. Normally, a worker bee lives for about a month, but the queen, by eating bee king's nectar, can live up to 60 times longer. Really? Is that even possible? She exclaimed in disbelief. Too long? Please, try to calm down. A blush crept onto her cheeks. She gave a slight cough to hide her embarrassment and said, so that's what happened. That certainly clears things up. She then explained that the internal technique Tiu-long had learned, the 5 poisons primordial art, was only a novice-level method, so it couldn't fully absorb the spiritual medicine's power. 𝐒𝐒𝐸 let out a sigh of relief. But the honey of a golden-haired bee king is equivalent to 2 months of internal energy. Does that mean you received 60 times that effect, giving you 10 whole years of power? Hearing her congratulate him on his good fortune, he was too stunned to speak. But when it came to his internal energy, 𝐒𝐒𝐸 suddenly trailed off. And another thing, she said, hiding her embarrassment with a fan, take a look in the silver mirror. It seems the royal jelly has other effects as well. Hearing this, his eyes widened in shock as he repeated, other effects. Xiaolong gently touched his own face, wondering, a silver mirror. Sure enough, when he saw his reflection, he was startled. He raised a hand to his cheek and whispered, something strange. He was beginning to realize, does royal jelly really do this? Where did the country boy from Hainan go? Xiaolong lightly touched his cheek in amazement. His features had become more refined, and his skin was much softer. It was almost like a woman's skin. As a thought crossed his mind, beads of sweat formed on his face. He blushed so fiercely he forgot to even move his hand from his cheek. He pictured a feminine version of himself. He smiled brightly and introduced, hello, I'm Wei Xiaoling. Then he clutched his face in horror. Is this the kind of royal jelly the queen herself eats? He quickly ducked his head, fumbling to open the sash of his pants, holding his breath in silence. He then checked to see if his little brother was still there. After confirming, he collapsed onto the floor, staring up at the ceiling and letting out a sigh of relief. Thank goodness, it's still where it needs to be. He then recalled what 𝐒𝐒𝐸 had said. If grandfather hadn't guided his energy, it could have been a disaster. He thought to himself that he should probably thank him. He had nearly lost his life but was saved. Xiaolong then walked down a familiar path. Yet he felt a strange sensation as everyone seemed to be staring directly at him. Seeing the young ladies giggling, he thought, I'm getting some very strange looks today. Could it be because my internal energy has increased? He quickly broke into a run, as if being chased by a ghost, telling himself, first, I have to get out of here. He left behind a chorus of cheerful laughter from the young women. At the dining hall of the Sichuan Temps, it seemed everything was changing too fast. He still hadn't adjusted to his new appearance. Curious gazes continued to follow him from all directions. Could this truly be the power of the royal jelly? It was a change he had never anticipated. He continued walking, completely bewildered, toward the Sichuan Tang dining hall. At the hall, Xiaolong stood outside the door, hesitating to enter and merely peeking inside. At that moment, the table was laden with delicious dishes, a feast for the eyes and palate. Everyone was already seated as servants brought out the last of the food. When the madam happened to turn her head, she spotted him. After a moment, she exclaimed, oh, my son-in-law is looking much brighter. Then she asked, are you feeling better now? Zhao Long bowed his head, respectfully clasping his hands. Yes, mother-in-law, I apologize for making you worry. She clapped happily. Not at all. A fortunate encounter is cause for celebration. Then she turned to tease her daughter. Oh my, look at this skin. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 must love it. Which made 𝐒𝐒𝐒 blush crimson with embarrassment. She awkwardly tried to change the subject. Zhao Long, you should sit down too. Amid the madam's cheerful laughter, he replied softly, yes. They all took their seats for the meal as the servants brought out the final dishes. As a servant poured tea, the family head asked with concern, Zhao Long, is your body feeling better? He nodded obediently. Yes, father-in-law, I'm sorry for causing you worry. Then he added respectfully, thank you, I heard you examined me yourself. The Grand Master smiled. A fortunate encounter like this is worth celebrating. The family head interjected. So, tell us what happened. I've heard a bit about the royal jelly from 𝐒𝐒𝐒. What exactly occurred? He didn't know where to begin. He habitually reached up to touch his face and started. As he recalled his first kiss, he closed his eyes and said, I think it was because of the golden-haired bee king. It was pleased with its new hive and wanted to repay me. As a result, I was pulled into the nest and suddenly fed its royal jelly. He then concluded cheerfully. I think that's how it all happened. It all began with that one strange coincidence. Everyone listened, completely amazed by this turn of fate. His father-in-law stroked his beard and smiled. It truly is a blessing from the heavens. 𝐒𝐒𝐒, seated beside him, was still too shy to lift her head. The madam placed more food for her son-in-law. Eat up and get strong. The meal proceeded in an incredibly warm and happy atmosphere. All of his previous worries seemed to have vanished completely. Zhao Long felt the genuine warmth from this new family. He promised himself he would work harder to live up to their expectations. The wonderfully flavored dishes lifted everyone's spirits even higher. The lights in the hall shone brightly, mingling with the sounds of laughter. I believe that's where it all started. It all stemmed from that event. The madam covered her mouth and exclaimed, how very strange. Meanwhile, the Grand Master remarked, oh, so a venomous creature of that level knows how to show gratitude. He then proposed, is it possible to find more of that royal jelly? If we could acquire more, it would be extremely beneficial for our Thames family. The family head added, the honey from the golden-haired bee king was already quite useful. If this is the royal jelly, it would surely be of immense help. The madam, interested in its beauty effects, asked excitedly, son-in-law, can we find more of it? Noticing that all eyes had suddenly turned to him, he let out a small cough. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 also turned and asked, that's right, Zhao Long, can you find it again? He closed his eyes and gave a slight nod. Yes, but inside, his thoughts were racing. If these were just ordinary bees, you would need to build multiple queen cells, called royal cups, and use the worker bees to collect the royal jelly. Recalling how he fled from the swarm, he thought to himself, Sir Zhao Long, that seems far from realistic. He wondered, if I tried something like that with the intelligent golden-haired bee king, I fear the outcome would be me turning into a human beehive. Thinking of the queen bee's innocent form, he pondered, the royal jelly is meant to nourish larvae, but I was fed directly by the queen. I wonder if there's a difference in this substance. After a moment of silence, he spoke up. To be perfectly honest, that is likely impossible. Hearing that, the Grand Master immediately asked, impossible, what is the reason? The madam also quickly questioned, son-in-law, why can't it be done? He replied, even if it were edible, who would dare to eat it? The clan head, perplexed, began to wonder aloud, what, does it taste bad? Or is there a strange odor? He simply shook his head. No, it's not that. He then revealed a shocking truth. The royal jelly is secreted directly from the queen bee's mouth. It seems the transfer must be direct. To prevent any misunderstanding, he clarified, think of it like a kiss. Requiring direct mouth-to-mouth contact, the queen's essence must be passed into the mouth to be transmitted. The Supreme Elder's jaw dropped, a look of shock and confusion on his face. What? Mouth-to-mouth with a queen bee. The matriarch was equally stunned. What does that imply? The clan head sighed, his hopes dwindling. In that case, it seems finding more is impossible. Unless it is Zhao Long, favored by the golden-haired bee king, no one else can. Suddenly, the clatter of chopsticks hitting the table drew everyone's gaze. Without looking at him, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 asked in a low voice, mouth-to-mouth you say? She hastily covered her mouth with her slender hands, alarmed. Her eyes darted sideways. Brother Xiaolong, did you compete by mouth with that bee king? Under the silence of the waning moon, a lonely crescent hung high above, casting its pale, silver light down upon the world. It was a hand crisscrossed with a dense web of scars. Bulging with veins, it belonged to none other than the renowned martial alliance leader, Fist Emperor 𝐒𝐒𝐒. His mind was a tangled mess, his thoughts threatening to explode. The wooden door swayed gently, revealing a graceful figure who entered like a celestial fairy. Upon her delicate oval face was a single, demure beauty mark. Bowing her head, her delicate hands carefully brought in a tray of tea. Fist Emperor 𝐒𝐒𝐒 glanced at the beautiful woman, speaking nonchalantly. Have you prepared the famous 𝐒𝐒𝐒 tea? With hands clasped behind him, the man spoke proudly. Ah, the rich flavor of my homeland. Truly, unforgettable. While pouring the tea, the beauty replied gently, indeed, it is the highest grade 𝐒𝐒𝐒 tea, a renowned specialty of our Namj. Hearing this, the Fist Emperor nodded gently. My thanks to you, fair lady. I, the alliance leader, will be sure to savor this cup fully. The beautiful woman stood nearby, her shimmering eyes fixed on his every motion. The Fist Emperor lifted the cup to his lips, his mouth slightly parted, just about to take a sip. At that very moment, a frantic voice echoed from outside, a report for the Alliance leader. Strategist 𝐒𝐒𝐒, how has an urgent matter to discuss? The anxious voice made the Fist Emperor freeze. Setting the cup down, he spoke with authority. Why are you not asleep? What business do you have now? Enter at once. A handsome, quick-footed young man named 𝐒𝐒𝐒 entered. He clasped his hands respectfully, his tone apologetic. My apologies, Alliance leader, for disturbing you during this peaceful night. He then quickly explained the situation. A secret message just came from our Sichuan intelligence line. Seeing the gravity of the news, I rushed here to report immediately. The Fist Emperor waved his hand dismissively, responding with composure. It is no matter for the strategist to come in person, it must be critical. Speak your mind. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 stepped closer, his hand secretly reaching into his sleeve for something. At last, he produced a goatskin scroll, placing it upon the table. He reported gravely, the Bloodhand Asur, Trek Van Duong, has finally been executed. Hearing this stunning news, the Tang Clan has retrieved his head and the infamous Bloodhand Poison Palm Manual. The Fist Emperor, unable to suppress his fury, slammed his fist on the table. In a flash, the jade teacup shattered into fragments. He roared furiously. What? The force of the blow left his hand, trembling uncontrollably. Gritting his teeth, the Fist Emperor demanded, the Bloodhand Poison Palm. How could they recover that wicked art, let alone Trek Van Duon's head? 𝐒𝐒𝐒 how quickly lowered his head, reporting to the Alliance leader. Some time ago, Trek Van Duong suffered a fatal blow from the myriad poisons Divine Lord. He vanished without a trace. After that incident, he later drifted to Hainan, living in seclusion to recover. As if recalling something delightful, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 added excitedly. Moreover, this incident has an incredibly strange and captivating twist. According to our latest intel, that great demon Trek Van Duong was defeated by a young martial artist, aided by a poison master of unknown origin. The Fist Emperor's brows furrowed in surprise. He asked doubtfully, what was that, you said? A young warrior and a poison expert. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 calmly sat opposite the Fist Emperor, fanning himself mysteriously with a feather fan as he spoke. It may sound like some ridiculous, melodramatic tale, but this is a drama so compelling. I guarantee the Alliance leader will be hooked. The beautiful woman, still standing, silently, found her curiosity piqued as she listened to 𝐒𝐒𝐒. How's vivid tale? Returning to the Tang Clan of in the Great Hall, all the elders of both the main and branch families were now assembled. After hearing the report, a white-haired elder nodded in agreement. It is exactly as reported. Clan head. Another, more hot-tempered elder, furiously roared. So, someone actually had the audacity to sell the Tang Clan's confidential information to an outside force. Another elder chimed in. How utterly brazen. I can't believe someone would dare to tarnish the Tang Clan's reputation to this extent. Xiaolong observed everyone's reactions. They were so different from last time. He turned to Hua Yin and whispered, Huh? Why isn't father-in-law flying into a rage at me today? Hearing this, Hua Yin let out a soft chuckle and replied, Of course he isn't. Saying Xiaolong's still confused expression, she explained in greater detail. When the family's honor is harmed, not even the branch elders can sit back and do nothing. In the end, this is still an internal family affair. The head of the Tang Clan closed his eyes, bowing his head in thought before reaching a decision. I have already sent members of the Beggars sect to verify the information on them. We should have news very soon. I intend to personally make a trip to Yongchuan Prefecture. An elder asked with concern, then how does the clan head plan to deal with them? The clan head already had a calculation in mind, laying out his plan step by step. For now, we will use the soul-annihilating poison, the blood-melting poison, and the heartbreak poison. As he spoke, he described a scene of burning bodies and dissolving organs, with enemies writhing in an agony so intense it could tear the soul from the body. Then, he declared with a commanding voice, Finally, I will grant them a cup of the 7 treasures soul-severing poison, to hasten their ascent to the heavens. Willow Dharma Valley. Xiaolong was so shocked, his voice cracked. Old Master Temps turned with an imposing air, giving an order to Yu Jiang in a tone that allowed no argument. What are you standing there for? Immediately assemble the entire poison extermination squad. I am departing at once. Yu Jiang bowed deeply and replied urgently, As you command, Master. The squad assembled with terrifying speed, standing in perfect formation in the courtyard, their eyes fixed on the master, awaiting orders. Before leaping away, old Master Tem shot a glance at his precious son-in-law to give him instructions. Boy, forget about household matters. Just stay home and recover your strength. I will handle everything. Xiaolong hurriedly clasped his hands and bowed respectfully. Rest assured, I understand completely. Please, take care. Hearing this, old Master Tem threw his head back and laughed heartily, his presence overwhelming. Take care, it's those insects who need to be careful. Let's see how they handle the 1,000-fold retribution I'm about to bring down on them. With that, he led the imposing squad away from the Temp's estate with incredible speed, watching the figures in their tightly wrapped black clothes disappear. Xiaolong couldn't help but turn to Hua Yin with curiosity. My lady, are those people the legendary poison extermination squad? I've been in the Tang Clan for so long, but this is my first time seeing them. Hua Yin covered her mouth with a faint, mysterious smile. That's right, they are in charge of the dark and sinister affairs of the martial world. She purposefully emphasized. To be blunt, they specialize in eliminating people, which is why they have the elegant name, the Poison Extermination Squad. When Jia Long heard that, a chill ran down his spine. He thought to himself, just sinister. It's probably much worse than that. At that moment, a suggestive cough echoed from behind them. Ahem. Startled, the two of them turned to see who it was. Xiaolong quickly bowed in respect. This junior Xiaolong greets the esteemed elders. The leading elder leaned on a cane, his voice as raspy as wind, rustling through leaves. Ahem. No need for such formalities. We heard that our son-in-law had a rare and fortunate encounter. Zhao Long remained humble, not daring to show any arrogance. Yes, Elda? His mind raced with possibilities. Could they have already heard about the golden-haired bee king in the hive? The elder coughed again, speaking with some difficulty. Cough, cough. This old one has come to ask a favor of ours. Still utterly lost, Zhao Long asked in return. A favor? What might that be? He probed. Is it about the golden-haired bee king's honey you've heard rumors of? Before Zhao Long could finish, the elder waved his hands dismissively, his tone slightly flustered. Ah, no, it's absolutely not about that. Surely you don't think we would covet such a small thing, do you, son-in-law? The elder behind him added with a righteous air. Indeed, all spiritual treasures in this world find their destined owners. How could one possibly force such things? Zhao Long saw that the two elders were just beating around the bush, refusing to get to the point. Growing more suspicious, he decided to ask them directly. Then what is this about? Exactly. The two elders exchanged an awkward glance, as if finding it difficult to bring the matter up. After clearing his throat for courage, the lead elder stepped closer to Zhao Long. He patted the boy's shoulder with a bony hand, his expression deeply mysterious. He blushed slightly as he leaned in to whisper, as if afraid of being overheard. Come a little closer. The thing is, don't you possess a certain kind of pill called the Zi-Tan pill? We heard that you refine it personally, so the decision to share it is entirely yours. At that moment, Zhao Long finally understood everything. A long, no-ana escaped his lips with a sly smile. He then pulled out 3 glossy Zi-Tan pills, juggling them in his hand with a half-smile. I am still trying my best to adapt to the Tang Clan. There is indeed much that is still new to me. If the esteemed elders could offer me a bit of their support, then this small matter would be nothing. Just then, Grand Elder Thames emerged from the inner hall, and seeing the harmonious scene, he couldn't help but ask, "Why are all of you gathered here, making a racket like a crowded market?" The sudden, authoritative voice echoed, causing the cheerful group to freeze instantly, as if turned to stone. About 5 seconds later, the elder who was about to accept the pills choked on his own saliva, letting out a pitiful gasp. Everyone around him rushed over in a panic, some patting his back while others supported his shoulders in a frantic attempt to help. We were simply having a heart-to-heart, strengthening our bond with our... Seeing this, Grand Elder Thames finally nodded, satisfied, and let out a hearty laugh. Ha ha ha, it seems you all have finally recognized Zhao Long's true worth. Standing to the side, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 watched this scene of mixed fortunes unfold, a cold sweat drenching the back of her robes. The elders bowed and nodded repeatedly, their words tumbling out. Of course, Grand Elder, you are absolutely right. Suddenly, a panicked voice cried out from the distance. Grand Elder, a report, a report. A great disaster has occurred. Hearing this, Elder Temps immediately spun around and demanded with authority, "What has happened that has you in such a panic? As if there's been a death in the family." The man dared not delay, and hastily reported, replying to the Grand Elder, "The Sichuan City Lord. He is on the verge of death, like a candle in the wind, with only a faint breath remaining." Upon hearing this, the faces of the crowd paled with absolute shock. The elder from before couldn't help but exclaim, What happened to the Sichuan City Lord?" Zhao Long quickly interjected, "Excuse me, did the Sichuan City Lord follow the instructions on dosage and usage that I provided?" The messenger stammered for a moment, knowing he could no longer hide the truth, and confessed, "The thing is, after the City Lord experienced the miraculous effects of the spirit medicine, he took on several new concubines, and he also increased the dosage several times beyond the original instructions." Upon hearing this, Zhao Long broke into a cold sweat, screaming internally, "Oh, for heaven's sake, that absolute troublemaker!" Grand Elder Tess, his head throbbing, rubbed his temples with a voice full of helplessness. Enough. I must go there at once." Before leaping away, he didn't forget to instruct Zhao Long. "Zhao Long, you are the only man left in the Tang family at this moment. Protect the women of the family well, do you understand?" Zhao Long obediently replied, "Yes, grandfather, I will take it to heart." Grand Elder Temps immediately executed his movement technique, transforming into a streak of azure light and vanishing from the Tang's estate in a flash. Zhao Long watched the Grand Elder's hasty departure, unable to help but wonder, what could possibly make Grand Elder Temps act in such a frantic rush? As dusk fell, all the main halls of the Tang's estate were brightly lit with lanterns. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 sat beside Zhao Long and asked gently, "Zhao Long, how is your training with the Tim Poison dual origin technique coming along? Have you made any progress?" Zhao Long hesitated slightly, answering with little confidence, "Well, it's become much less confusing than when I first started." He mentally compared the two techniques. If the 5 poison convergence felt like a single great current of energy circulating through his body, then the 10 poison dual origin felt like 2 streams operating simultaneously, much like a twin-cylinder engine. Hearing this, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 couldn't hide her delight as she announced, "It seems you've already developed a certain level of resistance to common poisons." She continued excitedly, "Furthermore, I can even directly channel my energy outward or infuse it into objects." Xiaolong asked again in surprise, his heart filled with doubt. Really, is it truly that powerful? After a moment of internal debate, he bit his lip with determination and said, "All right, let me give it a try." His gaze fixed firmly on the wooden dummy before him. As Xiaolong stood up on his own, he gently gripped a flying dagger between his thumb and forefinger, then focused his mind, his entire being becoming one with the weapon. He recited the incantation in his mind, circulating his internal energy from left to right, pushing the 2 streams of ki to rotate in sync. A faint, azure aura began to materialize at his feet before quickly spreading, enveloping his entire body. Xiaolong slowly opened his eyes, his pupils now glowing with a mysterious, faint blue light. He told himself, "Once this energy has flooded my meridians and muscles." The instant the sound of tearing wind echoed in his mind, he planted one foot firmly on the ground, pushed off with the other, and launched the flying dagger toward the dummy with terrifying speed. The dagger, carrying a sharp blue aura, tore through the air like a streak of light. An earth-shattering boom erupted as the dagger accurately embedded itself in the dummy's abdomen, shredding the fabric and sending scraps flying like snowflakes. "Lady 𝐒𝐒𝐒, I've had a breakthrough." The jubilant voice of the young Xiaolong echoed, shattering the quiet atmosphere. In response, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 smiled softly, her eyes curving into beautiful crescents. "Model Xiaolong, you truly are a prodigy. You've perfectly infused your life force into those throwing daggers." Hidden in the dim shadows, the black-clad assassins watched in absolute horror, their eyes wide as they witnessed the daggers tear through the wind. They struck the bullseye of the wooden target, embedding themselves deep into the solid stone wall. The men exchanged terrified glances, whispering amongst themselves. Had they been discovered? One of them hissed in a trembling voice, "We have to silence them." But his companion quickly disagreed. "No, it must be a coincidence." The last man, clutching a scroll made of goatskin, lowered his voice to a barely audible whisper. "Even if it's just a copy, the blood-hand poison palm technique is now ours. The mission is a success. We must return to this sect before this night brings any more trouble." He couldn't hold back a triumphant laugh, his voice rasping like a crow's caw. "These mortals are absolute fools. With security, this lacks. It was child's play for me to sneak in and claim their precious treasure." Suddenly, a strange aroma wafted through the air, causing him to frown in suspicion. He whispered a warning to his comrades. "There's a strange, sickly sweet scent in the air." The entire group frantically scanned their surroundings, desperately trying to pinpoint the source of the odor. Just as they looked up, their blood ran cold. A giant hornet was hovering right above them, glaring down with eyes that burned like fire. Its furious expression screamed that it wanted to tear them limb from limb. The buzzing of its wings roared like thunder, radiating an overwhelming killing intent. In the ink-black night, a blood-curdling scream shattered the silence of the training grounds, striking fear into the hearts of all who heard it. Xiaolong jumped in surprise. What on earth just happened? 𝐒𝐒𝐒𝐿's gaze, sharp as a hawk's, shot towards the source of the sound. "It appears we have some uninvited guests." Sure enough, from behind the ancient trees, a group of cloaked figures stumbled into view, their faces twisted in terror, as if they had seen a ghost. They screamed in unison, "Ah! Why is there a monster hornet here?" Seeing their suspicious attire and panicked behavior, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 immediately knew these were the intruders. For the safety of the Tang Clan, 𝐒𝐒𝐒 didn't hesitate for a second. She gathered her energy and launched herself toward the enemy. She didn't forget to issue a command to the boy behind her. "Xiaolong, what are you waiting for? Fire!" Xiaolong cried out in a daze after her fading silhouette. "Young miss, be careful." The leader of the assassins, seeing how desperate the situation was, screamed at his comrades, "Everyone, fall back." Just then, another man was stung on the ear by the giant hornet, letting out a terrible, pain-filled shriek. "Get it off! Get this cursed thing off of me! Somebody, help me! You damn beast!" His 2 heartless comrades paid him no mind, using their movement techniques to flee for their lives. But 𝐒𝐒𝐒, moving like a bolt of lightning, closed a distance instantly. Her voice as cold as ice. "You're not getting away." Channeling energy into her wrist, a jet-black whip, covered in razor-sharp steel barbs, materialized in her hand. 𝐒𝐒𝐒 put all her strength behind the attack, unleashing the whip like a striking dragon toward her foes.